We'll call our Select Board meeting to order. Charlotte's Select Board, Monday, February 12th. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Public comments? Yes, Peter. We're asking people just, it doesn't amplify, but it gets on VCAM. No?
I'd like to ask the Select Board to find some time on an agenda coming up fairly soon to discuss our conflict of interest policy, and specifically abstaining from discussions when a board member is a member of a committee or any town organization.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have, I'm going to discuss it now, but we've talked about it a lot. We've read the statutes, we've read the Select Board policy, and it's not uncommon for small towns to have people on multiple committees. And it's really at the discretion, I think, of the Select Board. I know you and I have written a lot of emails. But if you want to set some time aside, we could.
Well, I've asked you, and you kind of put a burden on me, and I don't think it's my way. I could go out and find an attorney to come up with an opinion, come in and tell you that. I'm not sure that you're going to accept that. So the last discussion we had seemed to put that burden on me to get a definition or get a ruling on conflict of interest. And, I suggested that, you have a town attorney that we've never had a problem in talking to him in the past. And the leagues of city and towns would be able to help you with that, I believe, as well. The Secretary of State's office would be able to help you with it. But I don't know that that's my place, because I asked the question.
But what I was trying to say is we've done that. We've done that. And the board has discussed it 2 or 3 months ago when you brought it up, and there was no concern among the board about conflicts. And you've asked me 2 or 3 times to do this, do that. In fact, we have done that.
Well, did you think maybe you'd have told me that and told me what the opinion of the attorney was? You didn't tell me that you went out and spoke with leagues of cities and towns. You didn't tell me that you spoke with the state's attorney.
I didn't talk to the state.
The Secretary of State's office. You didn't tell me that you've spoken with our town attorney.
I believe. Didn't we do that, Dean? Wasn't there a discussion?
I know it was with the League of Cities and Towns.
And they said it was up to our individual discretion. So we did talk to them. You've read the statutes. I don't think there's an issue. All these things you want us to do, but at a certain level, we've done that. And the board didn't have any reaction when we brought it up a couple of months ago.
Well, it's the board is who is coming under scrutiny here. So I'm not sure that that's the best source in this case, to be asking the board if they think that they have a conflict when they're voting on issues that pertain to somehow have a direct or indirect impact on them.
But each of us in our organization have a representative to recreation, senior center, fire and rescue, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Well, but if you're a sitting member of another board, I don't have a problem with a liaison person. I think there's a problem with a person that is a member of another board in town and they participate in voting on something that's going to affect that board. The way I understand a conflict of interest, if there's a mere appearance of a conflict of interest, then the person should recluse themselves. So if we're having this discussion, then there may be the appearance, or is it just me that thinks there's that appearance?
It's not that the appearance makes you recuse yourself. The appearance of any conflict requires you to present it to the people who may have the conflict, and it's up to them to decide. Just because somebody thinks there is an appearance of a conflict of interest doesn't mean no one, game over. It means you point out to whatever group you're working with, there may be a conflict of interest, what do you think? To which they respond.
My reading of the conflict of interest was that interest is referring to personal monetary gain.
No.
That's the way the statute reads.
One of the three criteria, I think. Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
It's not- it's not
does it
just-
have to
it's
be?
not just.
Does it have to be monetary? It
One of
says
the
direct
examples.
or indirect benefit. Now, benefit doesn't have to be interpreted as financial, does it?
That was the reading I got when I looked at it, and I think when the league looked at it. I don't know what other benefit you'd be referring to.
Is there a benefit of being a member of an organization and in that organization benefiting, and you, as a member, would be benefiting from a vote that you made?
I guess someone would have to define what the benefit is.
We're dancing around the fact that Peter doesn't want me to be on the select board and be a member of the fire department. That's what
But it's
this,
in the MOU that is the way we operate.
That's what the
And
issue is.
Select board votes for that representative. That's why,
The MOU is a document that was written up by that corporation across the road, and I'm not sure that, the MOU can't supersede law.
doesn't. So
Well, that's what I'm
I
not
guess, I don't know, does the board want to take this up? Let me just ask the board. Do you want to take it up again at another meeting?
Well, I don't see there being a problem having it be an agenda item
Okay.
to discuss it. I mean,
Yeah.
public comment.
call council, spend some more money on attorney bills.
Don't see any reason why we can't
Okay.
talk about it.
So we'll put some time on the agenda. Go ahead.
I think what the problem is not whether you're a liaison, Chris. I think it's the fact that you're a member of both organizations. The liaison, I don't think is what he's discussing. It's the fact you're a member of the firehouse or rescue squad and firehouse and also on the select board.
I'm a volunteer for both. Actually, I get paid for the select board.
You get paid for both of them.
Okay, we'll set some time aside. Road maintenance salt mix. I've received some feedback that in East Charlotte, roads have been icier than normal, considered dangerous. Anybody want to speak up to the concerns they have? Junior's here. You normally, Junior, once a year, every other year, you've asked us about the mix, salt versus the sand. We listened to your recommendations and we voted on it in the past. Does anybody want to comment where we are today, or do you want to say what the status? Maybe Junior, why don't you tell us the status right now of the mix?
Basically, when we do the blacktop, what we call the blacktop run,
Yep.
we put more salt in it. We have salt in the big pile that's down there to kind of keep it from freezing. It still does freeze on the top, but then every storm or before every storm, I usually mix up a pile of what we call the hot mix, which is mixed hotter. And I've increased it, some, and I would say right now we are at about 20% salt, and the other 80% is sand in the hot mix that we're using on the blacktop. Now, I haven't gotten any complaints. Peter hasn't said anything to me about it's been icy, at a meeting when it comes up. And it usually comes up every year or every other year, about January or so, right when we have the cold spell. And, salt doesn't work. I don't know if he's done any homework as far as calling any of the other towns to see what they're using, but they're not using clear salt. They're using Clear Lane, They're using liquid calcium chloride being sprayed on the salt as it goes down the chute. So they're using stuff that will work when it is colder. So, you know, and I know in the past we brought it up and they said, it's up to me, the road commissioner, which is fine. But on the other hand, I would like to see if we go and say, okay, after tonight, we're gonna use clear salt. Well, you know what? The few people that are complaining about wanting more salt, you're gonna have just as many complaining that we're using too much salt. And I'm sure of that. I would like to, and I've said it almost every time it's brought up, I would like to see it go before the voters, just as a non-binding. I would like to see it go as a binding, and then if we have 80% of them that want to go straight salt, I'm all for it. You know, all the towns around us use straight salt, I'm all for it. But it's been brought up, I mean, I've gotten letters and letters from Larry, I know he's not here anymore, about the trees and, you know, so it's up to the voters. I mean, let's say tonight, what do we have? A handful of people here to make the decision? I don't think that should be the decision. I think it should be made at a town meeting so there's more people can get in and vote on it and decide whether we want to use more salt. I'm okay with it, you know, and when Dean told me it was going to be on the budget, on the agenda, and I said, that's fine, you know, but if we do want to use more salt, then let's just say for next year, we're going to have to go back and revisit the highway budget for sure. A load of salt is about $1,500 and a load of sand is about $230. So, I mean, I'm fine with using salt, and I mean, as far as being road commissioner, come in March, I'm gonna be 20 years as a road commissioner. That is my biggest complaint that I do not like, is people from neighboring towns come through, Ferrisburg is bare, Shelburne is bare, Heinsberg is bare, and we're not. Well, we don't use as much salt, you know what I mean? But if you go and you look at the accidents, whether they're in Shelburne or Charlotte, we're not having more accidents than the other towns. And a lot of them, because either if I don't see them, my drivers see them, it's the driver. It's speed, they try to pass the plow truck, or when they're off the road, first thing we do is look at their tires. Oh, I've got all-season tires. These are 80,000-mile tires, best tires you can buy. Yeah, guess what? The rubber compound is so hard, you can't get no traction with them. But you can't tell people that. But if you need to go out every day to go somewhere, you need snow tires. So, you know, I'm thinking, you know, it's up to the voters, whatever they want. You guys can make the decision. You can tell me, let's use more salt, and I'll use more salt, you know.
Comments? Yes.
I'm fine with it.
Junior, I think that if you did a cost analysis, if you did I got one.
Oh, you got one?
A cost analysis between the amount of salt that you use, the sand that you use, the 20%, 30% mix you have in the sand, the amount of times you have to go out, the amount of times you have to scrape off product.
The others are doing the same. All the other towns are scraping as much as us or more, and every time they go out and scrape, they reapply.
I'm telling you that you scrape off more product when you scrape than other towns do. They do scrape it off, but you're scraping off more product over more days. And I think probably the roads that I see the worst on is State Park Road, which has been better lately. But Spear Street, the whole length of Spear Street, with the ridges of ice on the outside, no guardrails, narrow road. And I mean from Heinsberg Road to the Shelburne town line. And there's been 4 or 5 accidents up through there this year. And I'm not gonna argue over the driver error, and I'm not gonna argue over tires and all that. But once you get sucked into that sand, there's nothing you can do, or slush and that's on the side of the road, there's nothing you can do. Everybody's trying to hug the middle of the road, because that's where the bare spot is. But that road needs more salt, period.
You had your hand up, Peter?
I did. First of all, Junior, I'm not here to criticize you. I don't envy your job. The roads have never been any better than they are tonight. They look great. There have been times, as I go in on Shelburne or on Spear Street each morning, from the corner at Carrie's store to the town line, that those S curves have been just absolutely treacherous. And there have been 5 or 6 accidents there this winter. Right now, the road conditions are great along that stretch as well as the whole town, as far as I can see.
Well, it's warmer.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
well, but still, there's no pack on the road, and and we did have, 5 or 6 inches of snow recently, so, the last several years, I've been to meetings, and they've told you that, use as much salt as you think you need, and then I've heard you talking either here or outside saying, I wish they'd give me guidelines, I wish there would be, for a town vote. And I think that would be a great idea. That would be, coming in this evening, I thought maybe we could talk about experimenting with a couple sections in town and run a cost analysis and see for the rest of the winter and see how it works. See, if we, and I don't know, when you talk about hot mixing 20, that means nothing to me. What means something to me is that when we get to the Shelburne town line, Shelburne's roads are bare, ours are not.
Big difference.
Well, I understand that, and I would like to see a section of the road maybe experiment with it and see what you think you could do with different mixes and the expense to the town, the added expense, or even if there is an added expense. Some people think there wouldn't be an added expense, but I'm not sure that just jumping into it and saying, let's have a town vote, I'd like to see you try a section of town, maybe try 2 sections of road, and just have a separate pile of salt over there that you can load on and not mix it with the sand and try it, and come back to the select board and say, gosh, it costs this much more to do 3 miles of road, do you think it's worth it? Go from there. But I'd like to see that, or I would like to see a town vote on it. And I've heard you say that a number of times, and if that's what would make you happy, that would be a good start.
Well, I just think that, if you don't have the town-wide vote, you're not gonna make the few people that are complaining, okay? When it's cold, yes, the road we get packed down, but you can't really, compare Shalott to like Shelburne, because they're not using just salt, which we would be. They're using Clear Lane, which works 20 below. Regular salt only works down to about 20 degrees.
So, I'm not saying that, ultimately, my goal would be to have bare roads. So I'm not saying that salt is the answer. If you're telling me that clear road is the answer, I just have a hard time understanding why we have to go from roads in Shalott into Shelburne where the roads are fine and turn around and come back at night and have the roads fine in Shelburne and icy in Shalott through that section. And that's, and I've been along Heinsberg Road going past my barn down that way, and we do see some of it at Heinsberg town line as well. And I don't know what Heinsberg's policy is. I don't know what North Harrisburg's policy is. But I'm not sure why here in Shalott, I'm not sure that, we pay a good chunk of money in taxes in our town, and why we can't enjoy the safety of having our roads the same sort of conditions that our neighbors' roads are.
I think we need some numbers, Junior, on what clear lane costs, what salt costs. I think we need some numbers of what would, just so we have something to look at to compare to. I mean, I think that's the kind of what Peter's trying to get at, and then see what the cost is, and then possibly do some tests on it.
Susan, you had your hand up.
Yes, well, first of all, I'd like to say that there are other than monetary costs involved in this. There are environmental costs. And as deputy tree warden, One cost is to roadside trees, because salt, most of our native trees are salt intolerant. There are other costs, so there have been studies about salt that accumulates in the water where streams go under roads or through culverts. And I've got a study here from Paul Smith I can leave with you. It accumulates over time. And a bare roads policy that happened in the Adirondacks also really increased the use of salt. And I think it'd be great to hear from Junior about how much salt he buys already. How many tons of salt goes into our environment every year? And to have a bare roads policy, how much salt would be going into our environment? The other costs that are to people's cars, bridges, culverts, any salt deteriorates all those things. So I would like to know how many tons per lane mile of salt we're using now. Maybe one method we could use would be to not use salt where we're near streams, so the salt's going to reduce the salt going into streams.
I don't think that's a safety thing.
Remember, people drive slower when their roads are a little bit covered with snow, which we've been talking about here for every year. How are we going to get people to drive slower?
It's a traffic comment.
Yes, it's a traffic calming.
Any other comments? Yes, Mark.
So I just wanted to amplify what Sue had said and restate the position of the tree warden, which hasn't changed since I took over, which is that the tree warden's opposed to an increase in use of road salt. Recognize certainly that there's a balance to be struck between public safety and environmental impacts, but I would certainly be opposed to some blanket increase in the use of salt. From a tree warden perspective, it's, as Sue mentioned, it's detrimental to tree growth. In particular, certain species of trees like sugar maples are very sensitive to road salt. And it's one of the reasons why you see fewer healthy sugar maples in Shelburne, which has a clear roads policy as opposed to here. Because in Shelburne, a lot of their sugar maples have been damaged or killed by road salt. It's one of the biggest factors in the decline in sugar maples in Vermont and elsewhere. So roadside sugar maples, that is. And there are a variety of, there's a range of environmental impacts which are non-trivial and have to be taken into consideration in any kind of policy that would increase our use of road salt. The salinity of Lake Champlain has increased by 30% in the last 10 years due to increases in road salt. It's detrimental to trout fisheries. The salt releases soil-bound heavy metals, which can enter into the water column and cause detrimental health impacts. The state of Vermont has been forced to pay money to people whose wells have been polluted by road salt. That's something certainly we don't want to avoid getting to that level of contamination in Charlotte. Another thing just to be mindful of is that the Burlington Free Press reported that the state of Vermont is considering regulation of road salt, and I think it would be good for us to be a little bit ahead of the curve on this issue. Other towns are trying to reduce their road salt. South Burlington is trying to reduce the amount of road salt it's using. Essex has reduced the amount of road salt it's used by 50%. So
Do you know what they're changing over to?
I don't know that. That's a good question. And I don't know about the environmental impacts of other things that they might be using. But the point of reducing the road salt is to minimize the environmental impact. So presumably they're switching to something that has lesser environmental impact. So I don't know. There may be some stretches of road, that Peter and Robert have pointed out that we may really need to have additional road salt. But I think the other, considerations have to be taken seriously and taken into account. I'm not sure about a public vote. I don't think, I think this should be something that's, weighed from a professional perspective and not subject to a popularity contest. But I think maybe a non-binding vote would be interesting, to see what the perceptions are of people out there, whether people perceive there to be, too little road salt on the roads or what. I talked to, thinking, I knew that, Peter, I knew that you had asked this to be on the agenda, and I was assuming that it was because your fuel delivery trucks are having trouble.
More important than my fuel trucks is I have 2 grandsons that live in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I have 3 sons that live in Charlotte. And I still have, I hate to say this in front of the tree warden, but they're more important to me than a maple tree next to the road. And there were mornings that along those curves on Spear Street, it's absolutely dangerous. And again, there have been 5 or 6 accidents along that stretch this winter. It's a matter of time before somebody gets, there are places where there aren't guardrails there. It's a matter of time before somebody gets hurt very, very badly there. Do I have a concern about my fuel trucks? Absolutely. We're trucking around hazardous materials. One of my sons drives a fuel truck for me. There's a huge concern on that part. There would be a concern if they were driving a UPS truck, and there are multiple reasons why I have concerns about the conditions of the roads, and I mean, you bring up a great point with the environmental impact, and there are a number of things that people are looking at. They're using beet juice, they're using other things that, it's a point where I think that we go from driving under what could be a dangerous condition, you get to a town line, and then that dangerous condition goes away. And I'm not sure that we in Charlotte deserve to have to drive in that day. We're not, it's...
Well, I think, certainly the public safety aspect is, has to be taken very seriously. And, but my point is that, I would be opposed to a blanket increase in use of salt as a kind of a policy. And I think any kind of additional use of salt should be done judiciously where it's needed and when it's needed. So, we shouldn't be putting salt down in sub-zero temperatures, for example, or putting salt down where it's not really needed. Anyway, maybe I've said enough.
How about, I was just looking at our articles. Article 8 for the town meeting is transact any other business proper to come before said meeting. I mean, you could have a discussion there and get, like you said, it's going to be the whim of the folks that are there, but at least you can have a discussion and see if somebody from the audience wants to bring that up. I mean, it's the end of our meeting at the town meeting. And Junior could be listening, he'll be there. Huh? Unless it's snowing.
One little more point, Lane, if I could. I talked to Jesse Jackman, which is the reason I was bringing this up earlier, from Jackman Fuels, to ask if they've had any trouble with their delivery trucks on our roads. And he said that none of his drivers have raised any issues in the last 4 years since the 2014 big ice problem we had 4 years ago. And so that was, I haven't taken a scientific survey, but I thought that was at least interesting to note. And he said that from his perspective and his driver's perspective, the roads in Charlotte are well-maintained. So,
Any other comments, Robert?
Well, I don't think waiting to the last of town meeting under articles when nobody's left there really gets you much solution to the problem. When you're talking about Spear Street and certain roads in town, it's just a common sense issue right now. There's 5E up there, somebody's gotta make a decision to say, Junior, use more salt in certain places on the road.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Can't you just take care of the S-curves with a little extra shot of salt somehow?
See, the only thing is when the truck is loaded for the blacktop for the Spear Street one, he also does Heinsberg Road from Route 7 to the Heinsberg line, Spear Street North, does the little hill on Carpenter Road, and then the Dorset Street section, that's all with one load, so, right now. So if you were to say, we're just gonna do this one section, you know, it would have to be with let's say, clear salt or close to clear salt. It would have to be a special trip, so which would entail making our time a little bit longer. You know, I mean, the other thing to do is we could, you know, we could increase the salt, you know, and just put more salt in it for all of the blacktop. I mean, it's.
That's what I was gonna ask.
But
Do
you know,
20.
the one thing that I do wanna say, okay, is, I haven't been getting complaints, okay? My wife, Leslie, anybody calls, I don't care if you called 2 years ago, it's wrote down in the notebook and we have it. There's very few people that are calling me, and I don't know if they're calling you guys. If they call Mary or Christine, they usually give them my number and they call me. So I'm not getting the calls. Peter's never called me once. As far as that. Huh?
I text you.
You text me.
I haven't seen anything on Front Porch
You
Forum.
I haven't either.
No, and you know, and the other thing is, I want to just get back to what, you know, Peter said about his grandkids and stuff like that. I want to just tell you a little story. The other day, over on, I think it was on Heinsberg Road, there's this high school girl going to school, and she had a four-wheel drive Jeep, but she was having a really hard time. The tires were almost bald on it, okay? This is something that the parents let the kid go to school with. She did not know how to operate the vehicle. She didn't know how to put it in four-wheel drive. So Ron, the one that works for me, he put it in four-wheel drive for her. Once he put it in four-wheel drive, now she says, well, do I have to put it in drive to make it go? You know, you can laugh, but I mean, when you get behind the wheel, whether it's your grandson or whatever, and you're behind the wheel, you are responsible for that vehicle. Now, if it is all glare ice, you know what? Maybe almost every kid has got a cell phone. Maybe they should call and say, you know what? I'm going to sit here until the sand truck goes through. They have to make that decision. You know, I can't drive the car for them. And, you know, I had kids driving, and I see people's kids, and I don't like to see people have accidents. But you know what? They've got to take some responsibility. And the parents, you know, I'm not saying that yours don't have good tires on them, but they need to. There's people that have all seasons.
They're 5 and 3.
Okay.
So they won't be driving.
I think we ought to wrap this up. I don't think we should make any changes right now. If you can focus, there's 2 roads have been commented on, Spear and State Park Road. If pay a little more attention.
State Park Road, I mean, I don't see the problem there. I don't think there's been an accident there at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as Spear Street, and I've called Mike several times. Whenever the ambulance calls, I usually call Mike Cook and I say, hey, was there an accident? Was it because of the slippery road, the one that just went off on Spear Street there that just kind of drove over the bank into the ditch? The road was, I think, bare when that one went off there.
There was one recently where someone ran into the back end of someone's car that
Yeah.
absolutely had nothing to do with road
Correct.
conditions.
So, I mean,
The other 5 were all
But a-
very bad conditions.
but a lot of them, you know, what happens is, and you see it a lot, is they get over, and they get like off the edge of the blacktop, on Spear Street especially, because that was repaved this year, that section, I think, in the S-turns you're talking about. And if they get their tire over that little lip, then they can't come back up on it.
Well, that compounds a problem that when we keep putting asphalt and build up the road, and you have that drop off, so that once you get two wheels over the side of the road, you're getting sucked off the side of the road, because we have no shoulders, the shoulders aren't built up. You know, there are times when you're going through there that it's hard to find the center of the road, and when someone else is coming in the other direction, you're not quite sure. You're not sure if they're establishing the center or you're establishing the center, and if they happen to be off a little bit and you get two wheels over that edge, it becomes very, very, I mean, that's a tough situation.
Okay, I think we've had a half hour on this. Does the select board have any action they want to take on this topic? You mentioned something, you want some,
No, I was just gonna mention that I drive a school bus through that road every morning, every afternoon. On one of the accidents where I think it was a pickup that went over the side and hit a tree. I drove through there that day with the bus. So it was passable, not perfect, but passable. There have been times where the roads in Charlotte with the sand have been better than some of the roads in other towns because of how cold it is and the sand does work. So there are times, as with anything, where the sand is a blessing I've seen. But, I mean, unless you drive a bigger vehicle, you don't understand sometimes how the road conditions are. Because you take even me with a school bus, and you have that thing take off on you, the back end take off on you, and you got 40 foot across both lanes. Which one of you guys in here are going to pull that back together? I've done it before. I've come down hills backwards. So I don't see where we've had a big issue with the roads. Not saying that part of Spear Street, which has a lot of trees on it, gets no sun, which is the big factor over there. And I think it would be prudent to try to find something that would work a little better in that particular area.
Can you have somebody go out with a salt truck, or they're, like one of the plow guys, such as Steve Denton or Steve Mack, whatever, with their salt truck, and just hit those few areas where there's a problem? Is that? If that makes sense, I don't know if it
Well,
does.
I'm
but,
sure Junior has a 1-ton truck and that he could do it.
yeah, because we talked about that.
We just have the big trucks.
And if you felt that the storm was going to warrant like a 70-30 mix, would you do that? I don't know if that makes sense.
70-30,
Yeah.
70 being sand.
Yes, and just decide to put 30%.
Sometimes we do that.
We do that, right.
Usually if there's a storm, a lot of it depends on when the storm comes.
Sure.
And if it comes like during commute time, then it's harder because cars can get it packed down. There's only 4 of us, and by the time you make, you cover the town, you gotta, if you're plowing and sanding, we got 160 miles to cover with 4 of us. So it's, some of it gets packed down, but if we can get there, and if the temperature, if the temperature drops really quick, then what salt is in the sand, doesn't work, and then they get packed down, and it stays there for a few days or until the sun comes out. I'm not gonna say that, they're bare. I mean, days like, the past few days when we've gotten this little bit of snow and it's warm out, they clean right up, but that's, Mother Nature is doing a lot of that for us.
I'd also just like to add, it'd be interesting to see what towns are going to do who are using Clear Lane. I just learned this morning, as of today, there won't be Clear Lane available in Chittenden County for the rest of the season.
It's already been used up.
Yeah.
What is clear, what is the composition of
The main extra ingredient is magnesium chloride, which I think can be in higher concentrations. It's green. It's supposed to be more eco-friendly, both for trees and for pets. So they're using it on the sidewalks, but it's also 50% more expensive than salt. And a designer patented product like this is a perfect example. We're in February and it's not going to be available until April 1st at the soonest. And it sounded like Barrett's isn't even going to order it until next year. So, I mean, we'll see what those towns are going to do.
I suspect Junior will do whatever he gets paid to do. You could give him clear every day, all day. It just costs a lot more money, it'd take a lot more time.
Yeah, that's what I said, it's basically, I think it's up to the voters, because I don't, I would like.
I understand. So let's just wrap this up. So you've heard, I think in summary, the winding area, North Spear Street, maybe a little more attention. I don't think the board's giving you any direction to change your mix. That's a bigger discussion, professional input. There's a lot of sides to it. If you could add a little additional focus, however you want to do it, depending on the temperatures, if you can, the truck that does that North Spear Street, if you do what you think is right there, but don't change your overall philosophy. That's the way I see it.
I agree with you.
Okay, we move on. Thank you for your patience and input from everybody. Okay. Emergency planning. Hi, Chris.
Here's yourself, Chris.
Max Kennedy right here.
What is your name?
Max Kennedy.
Max Kennedy, thank
I'm
you.
from Vermont Emergency Management. I guess I'll be over here so I can drive the, I've got some slides. I'm a visual person. So real quick, I am the Northwestern Regional Coordinator for Vermont Emergency Management, and my role is to support locals, so towns such as yourself, with emergency management, planning, training, and as well as response. So if you ever have an event and you need assistance, I'm also an asset that can come out to the town to help you. At any point, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Tell me what our objective is.
Yep.
So there's, what do we have, a half hour or so?
Yep. So the
what-
objectives are to understand the phases of emergency management, which is
Okay.
everything we talk about when we look at statutes, and then talk about the role of the Select Board and Emergency Management Director, which is Chris over here. Most of this is really clarifying in the statutes. It mandates that there are emergency management directors and that they have emergency management plans. I'm trying to help out with providing some clarification on what that role really entails. I'm going to talk.
The ongoing thing we talked about is
Yep.
this is kind of a phase to get all of us collectively on the same page with the state and how they're revising, how they're coaching towns to deal with things that do come up from time to time. We hope never, but we do have a plan. We're in the process of, I've been part of the committee with Max's folks, there are 5 or 6 of us, and the emergency management team that actually were asked to come together and see if we could make a better template that we have that goes out to all the towns. It's a requirement. So we're trying to come up with a more useful one that would help all of us execute the plan depending on the situation. And so phase 1 is Max and I are here for 30 minutes to do our best to tell you kind of how the roles work. And then that'll be followed up when you guys are ready with another session where we might actually, in the process, Dean and I and others in town will fill out the template, but then another session will be with Max, possibly, or any of his colleagues, to test it. We maybe have a little session on either a night or a weekend day, a couple hours, just to run through a couple scenarios and see how well we think it works,
Absolutely.
before we have to use it for real. And maybe we never use it for real.
Hopefully.
There we go.
So Title 20 has a bunch of requirements. They are relatively vague. I'm here to help kind of inform everyone what their role is in their piece of the puzzle and move forward towards building a better plan. So for those that don't know, emergency management, when we talk about it, what we're really saying is it's the coordination of resources. Resources being people or assets. SALT is a resource, but you're also a resource, the person driving the truck. To prepare for, mitigate, respond, and recover for emergencies. And the goals are always the same. This doesn't change anywhere in the nation. This doesn't change anywhere in those phases. you're looking at saving lives and preventing injuries, stabilizing the incident. So if you ever do get hit with something, it's how do you get back to normalcy? How do you take away the risk of lives and injuries? And then how do you protect property and the environment? And here it is rolled out. And I will say that the 4 phases of emergencies, it is not a piece of a pie where, they all have their own clear and concise beginning and end. Mitigation, when we talk about that, that's reducing risk to impact of future disasters. Preparedness, so planning, organizing, training. So talking about that plan, that new plan template that we have coming out, those are always overlapping with mitigation. When you look at mitigation, that's looking at cutting down trees so the next October windstorm doesn't take out all your power. It's looking at reducing the risk, not necessarily stopping the risk.
Maybe bigger road culverts.
Bigger road culverts.
Yep. That kind of thing.
So the response, that is when you do have an emergency, that's again, stabilizing the scene, dealing with it, getting out of it, and then recovery. How do you get back to normal? And all 4 of these fall under the role of your EMD. And without an EMD, the default per statute would be the select board. So these, no matter what, these responsibilities and these phases are covered by someone. So real quick, the select board essential responsibilities, you appoint an EMD. If you don't appoint one, you absorb it and someone in the select board owns it. So there's no, no town doesn't have an EMD. It's, if you're lucky, you have someone you're able to help delegate that to, and they're able to help assist with it. And then the second biggest responsibility is to delegate the authorities. So for the EMD to be able to do their job in any of the phases, they need to have some delegation on financial responsibility. So what can they spend and when? Different towns have, and this is up to the town, but you can establish what you can spend in preparedness or in response, but you want to make sure that whatever he can spend, he knows it and it's in writing. That way he can do his job, and you're not trying to all figure it out during the event of what he can and cannot do.
We haven't done that.
And honestly, most haven't. It's,
Right.
like I said, the statutes outline that every town has an EMD, an emergency management program, and that's compliant with the state, but that's all it's included in the statute. So we're helping inform every town, every agency, what their role is in emergency management. And then resources. So delegate what resources the EMD has access to, and whether or not they can be used to assist other jurisdictions or just those within the town. Again, resources going into individuals and actual tangible goods. Provide guidance to the emergency management, so he's not working in a hole, on his own. Everything boils down to coordination. I'm a regional coordinator. It's about pulling everyone together, and he as well is a coordinator within the town. So helping inform him, provide guidance as far as his left and right limits of what he can do and what you expect of him. Participate in emergency management meetings and training. So again, as an asset, being informed of your plan and what your role is within that plan. And then certifying and adopting the local emergency operations plan. So when we get the new LEOP template, the emergency operation plan template, ultimately the select board is the one that approves it. So they can say, yes, this is what we want to be done within the town when we have to respond to an emergency.
And you've been doing that every year. That's key.
When do we annually do that? Right about now, or?
Yep, so that is the standard. On our website, we do say it's due May 1st, and that ultimately helps factor into ERAFs, or emergency relief funding, if you ever do have an incident. That is one of the 4 items in place that will help get more funding to your town from the state. And then your EMD has his own set of responsibilities with that delegation. So he does coordinate, again, you don't do it alone. He's pulling in every response partner, the development of the local emergency operations plan. And we say coordinate if you have someone who has a role in it. It's making sure that they're informed of it. So if the fire department has a role in it, you want to make sure that the fire department is fully aware of their role and they can meet that need. They train individuals to the emergency operations plan. So if they have a role, they know what it is and they know when to do it. They organize community groups to inform and support local emergency operations plan. This is something that it's up to the town how they want to do it, but one of the biggest things throughout an emergency is figuring out what's going on. So it's tapping into your resources. If you have individuals willing to volunteer or however you want to do it, it's trying to coordinate people to assist with your piece of the puzzle in the response. Then completes, prepares, and submits federal grant applications. And that's talking about, we have mitigation grants, and then we, ultimately, if you ever have an emergency, the paperwork with is disaster relief funding. So if there's a declared disaster, he'll be help coordinating that with the state and getting the funds in place.
So the grants don't get written until there's an emergency? Or are there grants done for
There are
preparation?
grants available for preparation and mitigation. Right now, we have a bunch of mitigation grants. So if you have, and again, mitigation is reducing the impact of a disaster. So some mitigation funds are looking at, the classic one is relocating houses in flood zones. Other things are, generators are considered mitigation funding for certain areas, because if you have a huge power outage and certain people get impacted, it's saying, okay, we know that we're eventually going to have a power outage. How can we reduce the risk to this population? Or things like with the windstorm. If you have a bunch of trees that are in a dangerous area, looking at projects to remove those trees. There's a whole bunch of criteria for mitigation. Yes?
Max, I think we're going to ask you to talk about generators after you're done with your talk.
Yep.
We're looking
And again, there's a lot of moving pieces with this whole thing. This is probably the most compressed. I've tried to get it within a time constraint. I'm available 5 days a week. So, if you ever want to talk things offline, we have hazard mitigation specialists who can speak with it with much more authority and knowledge than I can, but I can help coordinate that as well. I do know that generators are a hot topic, and there's been other grants that have been removed, so there's more questions on what applies, but we can get with you. So the big thing is that a lot of towns don't really fully understand is what EMDs are not, and they're not incident commanders. Incident commanders, if you have a large fire, they're the individuals coordinating tactics to put out the fire. Because of your role being the coordination of resources, we want to make sure that you are not bogged down on the scene of the incident, trying to help save those lives, when really you're looking at where are we going to get the shelters for these individuals, where are we going to get sandbags. It's that ultimate resource coordination requires you to be a couple steps away from the scene and have a little bit of space to work without dealing with, instructing the individuals, the boots on the ground, as we put it. And a lot of folks, they kind of put both in the same bucket. And it's one thing that you have to realize, that if you have a large scene with an incident command, a hazardous material, response, and you're on the hazmat team, you're not going to be able to really do your role as the EMD. There's other ways around that. If you have two hats, as we like to put it, you can delegate an emergency management coordinator. So you can have a backup or someone below you who can then, for those events, they can step in and do that role as well. And then another one we get a lot is, when does the EMD get involved? You all deal with small-scale emergencies and responses all the time. This is not gospel. This is not a set scripture. This is just some examples of when an EMD or a local emergency operations center could get involved. So low level, or monitoring as we like to put it, is when you have a pre-event. So if you have a weather advisory, something that is coming, if there's multiple agencies involved, if there's some local resource agency coordination required, so if you have to move some pieces within your town or from across town lines, but it doesn't necessarily require a lot of work, or if there's the potential to escalate. If something's bad, but it's not real bad, but it may, you might want to get involved at the local level. So this is low level, sorry. Monitoring doesn't mean you're standing up, going to your town hall and wherever you operate out of, and you have all your team members there. It could just be simple text message updates, you just monitoring the event, but having that, foresight and situational awareness to be able to escalate it if you need to.
Remember the October storm, we had the power out, what was it, 2 or 3 days? Some parts of town were 5 days. We had several people call the fire station, looking for shelters, no heat in the house. We coordinated that to get back in touch through Christine, actually was the one who called me, and some other people called the fire station. We figured out that through Vermont 211,
Yep.
Red Cross had opened shelters in Burlington. That was how we were suggesting that if anybody else called, that was what we were going to direct them to, rather than activate the Emergency Operations Center, call some or all of you guys in, activate the fire station as the coordinated place, maybe as this first place, and deal with it. That was one where we were monitoring it. We were, figuring out a strategy to deal with those few folks. And if it got worse, we would have at least had the next step on it.
So then when you look at partial to full activation, where you actually physically get together in a room with whoever's involved in the Emergency Operations Center, some of the things you look at is multiple locations or sites. So if you have several impacted areas across your town, multiple jurisdictional agencies, so different towns, or even if there's federal agencies, state level assets, evacuations or the potential for evacuations. Evacuation's a big piece of emergency management, and it's got a lot of parts to it. And that's one of the things that really requires a lot of coordination for resources and as well as other entities and partners. And then assistance, so if you have assistance required for MOU, state or federal, or if there's sheltering activities. And that's one of the big things for this is you have EOC staff support. So it's not just Chris on the phone at this point monitoring the event. It's actually pulling together and having some support for him. And then looking at documentation. One of the big things that we always say to towns, the number one thing is if you ever have an event, document it. Everyone has a cell phone these days. Take photos. Make sure everyone who's out on the scene is taking photos. With FEMA getting more and more constraints with funding, there's more and more requirements for documentation. So if you can just have individuals, before they do that emergency repair on a road, snap photos, it's going to really help you all down the road documenting it and getting that funding support for if there is a declaration. And this is not how we tell you to do it. This is an example of what a fully staffed emergency operations center would look like. But the big things are not necessarily that these are all people, but their roles being covered. So you have your public information officer. Oftentimes the media wants to get involved. Having someone who can give them a real answer, because if you don't feed the media, social media will take over for you, and you want to make sure everyone in the town gets the right information at the right time. Having situational awareness, again, it's figuring out when we call or our local liaison calls Chris and asks what the situation is, he has someone being able to push up information so you know what's going on and you're not having to run around, monitoring every single road. So the role of situational awareness and that person collecting reports, logistics support. So if you have things you need, tangible goods, someone's figuring that out and then again pushing that up through to either the State Emergency Operations Center or pushing it down to the incident command post or where the emergency is. And then communications, that's really just how is this EOC communicating with these other partners. And then admin role is, like I said, documentation retention. Are they collecting the paperwork to make sure that if there is support down the road that they can get funding for it? Any questions? I know this is a lot.
It's a lot to take in at once.
And this is just, when we say who's involved in emergency, like I said before, it's everyone taking their piece of the puzzle and digesting it to the next level. So at the local level, you have your residents, your local officials, your EMD, your first responders, your volunteer, if you have any volunteer organizations or private sector, that's what your local emergency operations center coordinates. And then at the state, we have our own emergency operations center where we're coordinating state agencies. So if you need state level assets, urban search and rescue, hazmat, we also coordinate with the National Guard. So when you ask for support from the state, we're doing the exact same thing at a larger scale across the whole state. And then we're also looking at, if we can't get it and we don't have it for you, can we get it from the federal government through either disaster declaration, or can we go through interstate coordination so we have emergency mutual aid compacts with our neighboring states, and we can ask them for assets, and we do that all the time. We support across state lines, so just because Vermont doesn't have it, doesn't mean Vermont can't get it.
At what level does a local decide we need help on the state level? How does that decision made?
I will show you. I'm going to go one more. Oops. So for resource requests, we always ask that everyone first look at it and they say, can the request be met locally? So if the answer is yes, you say, yes, we have this at this garage, we can do this. Then you work with your local departments to meet the need. If the answer is no, then you say, can the request be fulfilled by mutual aid? If you have mutual aid agreements with your other towns, then you look at them and they say, yes, we can support you. Oftentimes, with a lot of the events we see in Vermont, they're regional. So it's not something that you're just hit with and your neighbors are fine. Oftentimes, your neighbors are also impacted with the same event. The ice storm, very, very rarely will we have our bordering towns, isolated from the event. So usually, with larger events, the answer is no. So then it says, can local contractors fulfill the request? That one often takes time. Ultimately, we have our 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, our watch officer, you can ask them. At any point, you can always go to the watch officer for information, and if you don't know where to get it, the watch officer can help us figure out where you get it. So you can always ask. If you don't know where the asset is, 211 is a great asset. We're constantly telling people their job is to refer information and help people out, figuring out what the answer is. But ultimately, we have a watch officer on duty 24 hours a day. They help with small-scale events. If there's a hazardous material event, they coordinate that without everybody having to activate their EOC. And then if we have a larger scale emergency, oftentimes our regional planning commission, what we call a local liaison, they're pushing information to you. So they're surveying every town whether or not you've reached out. So sometimes towns don't realize there's help available, and it's not until the local liaison reaches out and says, how are you doing, that they then understand that there's support out there. So a lot of folks take, I myself included, we take pride in being able to get it done, get out of it, do it without help. At the same point, there is help and it is available, but you just have to ask.
But just to clarify too, what I've learned through this process, and Max and his colleagues have helped me, if the town of Charlotte says Junior's got a bad snowstorm, which has happened before, and it's more than his 4 trucks can handle, he can't just call Shelburne because chances are they've got the same situation up there. If they had extra trucks, they would probably send them, just like Ferrisburg probably would if they did. But it's not like we can just call the state and say, hey, State Emergency Management Offices, my road commissioner needs 5 more trucks, 5 plow trucks down here in Charlotte right now. We've been told that doesn't happen that way exactly.
Yeah.
And bigger incidents, the bigger it is, the more widespread it is, the less likely it's going to happen. So basically the town has to kind of be able to figure out with a resource list that we're going to develop how we can handle whatever we have going on here for 36 to 72 hours before. Now, in Junior's case, Junior and I and a few others in this room know a bunch of people who have plow trucks, bucket loaders, that probably would come in, and that's where the select board and the emergency management director, whoever that is going to have to be ready to basically order this stuff up and be ready to pay the bills when they come in later, because if you're asked, so there's a mechanism to do it, but it's not like we can just magically call Waterbury, because I remember how that worked in the ice storm when I said, oh, we need generators, we need this, we need that. They're like, yeah, thanks, calm down. That's not happening, right? So if you need 40 or 50 generators, that's not coming from Waterbury, right? It may be coming somewhere else some other time, but not in the first 2 or 3 days.
And that's why we're stop number 3. And we ultimately are the State Emergency Operations Center is a slower moving beast to get rolling than your local Emergency Operations Center. But once we're up and running, we can coordinate. And much like you all at the local level are going to have to prioritize, you all don't have infinite resources. That's why we exist to support you. But you have to look at, if you have 5 requests for the same thing, but you only have 4 of those, you have to prioritize. So at the state level, we are looking at who's the most impacted and who needs the generators the most. And that's the whole coordination piece. Unfortunately, we are always limited with our resources. I'm just going to go back. Okay. So this is just real quick, not the entire list, but what the State Emergency Operations Center can do. Again, we have the watch officer who's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can get those fast-moving assets out there, the ones that are for life safety. The hazmat team, the urban search and rescue, they can tap into those response teams on the fly. We also have coordinated support. So again, we coordinate with other either nonprofits, interstate support, federal agencies. We do that so the town doesn't get overwhelmed with direct coordination. We assist with public notifications. So we have Vermont Alert. I don't know if anybody in here has Vermont Alert personally, but it's a system that we use to push out information to the public. So individuals can register for it, and you can say, I live here, I want to receive alerts about the weather and these types of emergencies, and we'll be sending out alerts all the time. If you have a life safety event, like a hazmat incident on the railroad, and you don't have Vermont Alert set up within your town, you can go to the watch officer and say, hey, we just had this going on. We really want to let everyone know within a 25 or whatever mile radius so we can, whether or not someone has signed up for it, we can push out information to everyone's phone within a geographic area for life safety events. So sometimes the hardest part is just informing the public, and we can certainly help with that. And then we have myself, which is my technical role is State Emergency Operations Center Liaison. If you're opening your EOC and you don't have individuals that are trained, or if you've never done it before, I can deploy to your town, help you set up your EOC, help you run through some of those positions that you have, and help stabilize that incident and help out with the coordination part. So it's something that we offer, and I have other counterparts, so if there's multiple individuals needed, that's something we can send to the town as well.
Like you remember the flooding they had in Plattsburgh a couple of weeks ago on the river, the trailer park? They did one of those over New York State. And they brought in people to help the local folks get the center going, figure out where all those people were gonna go, how to help them move their stuff, give them places to live. The Red Cross was there, they had anyway, it worked out great, from what I heard, worked out
Yeah,
well.
and it did. And I've been doing it with a bunch of events up north, in my part of the area that's been impacted. Everything is scalable, so we never say activate more individuals or pull more people in than's necessary. This is a quick, I'm not going to cover all this, there's a lot of moving pieces, and the public assistance funding part with FEMA is several hours of training itself. But real quick is you have the preparedness, your mitigation, and then you have your event, and then you're responding to it. You're trying to pull out of that event, reduce the impact to your community that's already happened. And then we have our local liaisons coordinating with your town, seeing what's going on. And once we have, if there's a damage assessment for funding, they'll be coordinating that paperwork. They'll be informing you all of what paperwork's required to get that funding reimbursement. And then, if we have the public assistance threshold of $1 million statewide or $3.63 per capita in the county, then we have that federal assistance, and then we come in, we help out with the preliminary damage assessment, and that's all coordinated with our staff at the Vermont Emergency Management level, pulling through recovery and then getting that
Mind you, this is
reimbursement.
pretty big, this would be something big. This is not, this
Yeah.
would be bigger than as big or bigger than the ice storm. This would be more than a trailer truck upside down on Route 7 that we've had a lot of, and it gets messy, and 6 to 12 hours later, it gets cleaned up. And sometimes people have to leave their homes, but usually not for very many hours. This is a bigger deal.
But it goes into maintaining all that paperwork for what things
Yeah.
are costing, because we look at all the towns impacted, and certain things are actually, if there's, depending on the utility involved, certain dollars can be counted. And we look at it and we try to add everything up and try to get that threshold met for the funding support for the town. Real quick, our worst case scenario is obviously 2011 tropical storm Irene. So that was the largest natural disaster to hit since 1927. And kind of put it in perspective, there's 223 towns impacted. So the State Emergency Operations Center was supporting 223 towns. We had 55 state and non-governmental organizations assisting, and then 15 responding federal agencies. So at the State Emergency Operations Center, we are coordinating with your local emergency operations center to prioritize and help support every town. And it just kind of shows the scale of things, how bad they can get, and why having the coordinated entities is really important. And then some additional considerations. So we do have a new local emergency operation plan in the works.
That was the draft you got in your packet.
Yep.
Maybe you probably didn't have time to read it, but
I
you
looked
did
at
get
it.
it.
And so the big thing with that is I talked to the team working on that new plan, and they did tell me that they've received a lot of feedback, and what's on that plan doesn't necessarily reflect what will be the end product. So they're taking all the feedback received from EMDs and towns, and they're trying to then update that plan, reflect it. Ultimately, the goal is to have an intuitive plan that'll help you respond to an event, reduce the impact on life safety and property damage, and get out of it. But right now, they said that what you have there is going to change a lot just based on the feedback. So I wouldn't get too hung up on what the format is. But the big takeaway is that we are later in 2018, there will be a rollout of an updated plan, and then that will be fully transitioned in 2019. So it won't be the required local emergency operation plan for this year. But if you all want to, myself and other Vermont Emergency Management staff members are available to help with the transition. So we're calling the workshop series is coming into the town, helping you all talk through, what you have for risks in the town, who you have involved, get everyone on the same page, kind of helping out with that training role of the EMD of making sure everyone knows the plan. And then we go through and we can do what we call a discussion-based exercise and say, just see if the plan holds water in theory, just talking through scenarios and seeing if we can talk out of a hypothetical response.
So what's basically we think is going to happen, the emails that Max has seen that I've seen, because I was one of the committee that helped write that. What you have there was an alpha or beta version of it. Some of the feedback came in, some of the smaller towns that literally don't even want to fill out the old LEOP, the old local emergency plan that you guys help me with every year. Like, that wasn't very many pages. It wasn't particularly useful either. It had some good phone numbers on it and a few steps. But the point is, there are towns that wouldn't even do that. There are towns that were complaining because they didn't want to have to do anything involved email. So, okay, that's one end of the spectrum. There are other cities and towns that are more on top of the situation because they have to be. They're bigger, they're risk areas, they're Burlingtons, they're Rutlands, they're Benningtons, Brattleboro's, and even Charlotte, where we actually, you guys are very proactive about wanting to do this. So our final version is, we're gonna use a version that's gonna look fairly, a lot like that. It's gonna have extra stuff, but that's because I'm gonna do a lot of the lifting, and Dean will help me, and you guys will help me. But the point is, the plan that we come up with for Charlotte is gonna be helpful for us here in Charlotte. And because we are gonna do it, and that's what we're all in this as a team, and we're gonna make sure it's useful to us. But there are, like I said, there are towns that don't even wanna fill out any of the paperwork, that literally want nothing to do with an EMD or having to do anything about this until, if and when the day comes, something bad happens in the town, they said, well, we'll deal with it. Well, that means someone like Max is gonna come in and help put the pieces together after the fact, but we're gonna try to be a little ahead of that.
Appreciate your help on that, Chris.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm in it with you, Dean. I helped write the thing, so I gotta help fill it out.
And ultimately, like you said, the end goal is it's something that's useful for the town. So
Right.
having no more information than you need, and then being able to pick it up, read it, and know what your steps are to help out in response to that
We're
incident.
gonna write a few specific so-called annexes, like we already have one for the hazmat situation down on the railroad tracks. We'll maybe have another one for how you help your, what's the right word for your population that has trouble being mobile.
Yep. Vulnerable population, special
That
needs.
group.
Yep.
So we're gonna have a way to figure out how we're gonna help those folks if we had to get to them and relocate them, for instance. But luckily, we don't have a dam over the town that might burst, and, fortunately, we don't have a big river running through the middle of the town that's known to probably burst its banks on a regular basis, even without an Irene.
Lake flooding is relatively slow.
Yeah, we have that, right, but it's pretty minimal what it's gonna impact and so on.
I have a question which Dean kind of brought up a few minutes ago. We have an article for the town meeting, which is to spend $50,000 for 2 emergency generators, one for here, one for the seniors. What are your comments about that? Is that a step of, this is hardware? Where does that fit in the equation here? I think we're
Well,
asking.
hearing that there might be some additional grants out there, that's good.
So, yeah, I mean, the thing with the generators, they have very specific, because they are high demand, because everyone wants a generator, there's very specific criteria to be met, and then, whether or not they are all funded is another thing. So, because it's not my program, I can't say that could be replaced, but to answer your question, where that fits, that'd be, part of mitigation or preparedness. I don't know where they're being used, but it's definitely a preparedness function.
So here and across
One would
the
be the
street.
shelter, and the other would be
Yeah.
so we could do the operation of both the operations center, either across the street or here. Because they're all tied in. If we don't have this, without the sewer capacity, we're stuck. I mean, we can only run our center for so long until
Yeah.
the tanks fill up, and then you're,
Okay, so that falls within the hardware in preparation.
being prepared to actually execute the plan and put it in effect and use it, we think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if we can't operate the emergency, I hadn't, really it was Fritz that reminded me, I always figured, well, I'd find some lucky farmer that would come by and figure out a way to suck this stuff out of our tank and take it away, but in the middle of an ice storm or whatever, everybody's busy. And it'd be nice to know that the facilities could still be used because this stuff is getting pumped where it needs to get pumped, and/or people who are trying to keep warm or whatever over at the senior center could do so. Because right now, the fire department's the only building in the town complexes that would have heat and power. And that's kind of the way it is. So this way you'd have a couple of buildings that would have it, 3 buildings that would have it.
So do you have the contact information for the person who's in charge of generators?
Well, she's not in charge of generators, but she's in charge of mitigation grants. So yes, I will provide that to you. And like I said, there's specific criteria for that, just because they've been hit with it's all down from FEMA, and there used to be other grants. The grants for emergency management and mitigation, they are constantly changing because they're all from the federal government. So the criteria, they're in fluctuation. But yes, I will provide that, and she can outline what that is. And if you ever run into any issues, my role ultimately is a liaison to Vermont Emergency Management, so I can help coordinate that as well. And I realize that was a lot of information. I'll always available if you have any questions. This is my favorite quote as far as emergency management. It's actually from a children's book. I'm not going to read it out to you just because it's not the best use of your time. But if you have any questions, please let me know. My email's up there, max.kennedy@vermont.gov, and I'm always available. My role is to help support locals, and Chris has already kind of kicked this off with the initiative as for the new local emergency operations plan, and then getting that, what we call the sequence of working up to developing it with you and then exercising it.
I mean, part of what Max did tonight was in response to you guys wanting to get more informed, all of us together, and Max created this, and this is similar to what you're going to be taking to other towns, so we're just ahead of the curve a little bit.
And someone in my section, they are working to get with the VLCT, just because, like I said, the statutes are not very specific. It says that you'll have this thing, but it doesn't say what this, emergency management is and what emergency management plan is. So they're working to help everyone else get on the same page as far as what the roles of the select board, the EMD, and what the expectations are.
I think it was very useful.
Oh, glad to hear. And
Our next step is to work on the plan.
We'll work on the plan, and then we'll,
Yep.
when you guys feel like you're comfortable, you want to do it, you tell me a time, we'll work with Max to have a little tabletop session here where we talk about the plan, we actually do a couple
Some
scenarios.
examples of things that have happened, like I didn't really know how the ice storm, the recent one, affected you and how you handled it and where the resources came from.
Right.
That'd be interesting sometime to.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's in the back of my head when we were thinking about this document, creating
then-
this thing.
And then get it in paper, so if you're ever not available, someone
Yeah.
else can pick it up.
That's
and
the other key thing.
They know.
I'm working on putting this in a situation where almost anybody can walk in, pick that book
Yeah.
up and say, okay, we gotta do this. So someone's gotta do this part, someone else do that, someone else do that. The fire department will still be here, but chances are they're gonna be very busy.
Ultimately, the plan alleviates training requirements because not many people do this every day.
No.
So,
And we hope we are, I mean, the sad part is, we have an ice storm in '97, and thank goodness, it's been a while since and Irene thankfully kind of went by Charlotte. We had a few minor things we had to deal with, but pretty minor compared to
Right.
what went on, so we were pretty lucky. But we want to be ready in case something else happens.
Good
for your
job.
time.
thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
That's good. Trail planning, how's our trail planning going?
Now that spring is almost here, right?
Almost. Today, anyway.
Yes.
So, how do you want to proceed? You're going to, kind of your thoughts on, 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
if we
some-
could maybe just go through, did you get this list?
I have to make sure I'm
Yeah,
on the
kind of
right.
four
Yes.
things,
Yep.
and maybe just kind of go down through those, and see if there's any other questions. But we thought it would be good to come now as we start planning for the spring and summer. And now that the underpass is completed, that we would talk about kind of what the next steps were and get some input from you guys on what's happening. So the first thing is signs. We really haven't put up a lot of signs in the past, except to not go across Route 7. We put up a sign there, those kinds of things. But we are going to start putting signs up on especially co-housing and through to the Melissa and Trevor Mack area.
I mean, on the road, so you know where the trails officially start and,
Right. So it will be on the road, and then as you go down the trail, probably you want to see one sign from where you are standing at a sign, sort of on
the
any
next one.
trail. So we have larger signs, but we also have smaller signs. So probably larger signs at the entrance to the different sections of trail, but then smaller signs as you go along.
So these are signs you already have.
Yes, it's like the one on Common Way as you go into co-housing, the Town Lake Trail sign.
They're like speed limit signs, only with the Town Lake Trail logo.
Yeah.
What type of posts did you guys decide on?
I think we have a bunch of cedar posts,
Yeah,
don't we?
co-housing has a whole supply of cedar posts that they've given to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So That's what we're hoping to use for posts. And then along with that, I know one of the big things is dogs and helping people to understand that they need to have their dogs leashed and to pick up after the dogs. So we do have at least one sign up that says dogs should be on leash, but we need to do it on like the Big Oak Trail coming in and at the beginning on State Park Road. We need to have dogs on leash signs. So in addition to the Town Link Trail signs, we'll also have those, and that also say, please pick up after your dog.
Will these be the other trails too? Pease Mountain, Blue Flame? Are you putting dogs on leashes and all the pooper scooper stuff and all the trails?
We haven't had the pooper, that was one of the things that we talked about too, is actually getting the bags for people, so that as you go on the trail, there are bags. I don't know, they have them some places in Shelburne if you.
But are you gonna put them on all trails, is my question?
Yes, we can.
And signs that say, no, all dogs on leashes, on all trails,
Yes,
so that one's,
I
they're
think
all
it's-
equal.
yep, we can certainly do that.
Well, I don't know if you've picked out the language, but I've always found it most effective to, instead of telling people what to do, to just have people have their personal accountability to the town ordinance, rather than having a sign tell them what to do. Signs that say town ordinance, leash law, leash ordinance applies on this trail, and allow people to follow that ordinance rather than being told what to do by a static sign.
So that was one of my questions, because when I looked up the leash law, it looked like dogs under voice command was actually what the law said. The co-housing, because we're basically on their property, it's like an easement across private property, we felt more comfortable about saying you have to, dogs must be on leash because that's what their policy is.
Right.
So I don't know about Plouffe Lane and all these others, because I don't think that is what the town said, and that's one of the questions that we have. And
Pease Mountain, what is the guy's name, Rick? I think of Rick's last name.
Parrish or Pear, the UVM guy?
Yep, the UVM guy.
Yeah.
He said that Pease Mountain could be dogs on leashes. All we have to do is give them the word that we want dogs on leashes up there.
So I think,
And they'll do
I think
that.
that's a discussion for,
Yeah, because it is different. If you go to the wildlife refuge, there are no dogs.
No dogs.
No dogs allowed.
Yeah.
So it is different in different places. So I think we do need to be respectful of like co-housing their rules and.
And we were wanting to set, a policy for the link trail, that the whole link trail would be dogs on leash.
On
Because
leash.
because it is, so much of it is on private property.
Well, you mean policy, like the town would set a policy for that?
Well, it would sort of supersede the town policy, but that's what we're recommending, so that people's dogs don't go into gardens and,
But what stops them from being on Pease Mountain and go into other people's yards off of Pease Mountain?
Yeah, we
Into the
we did not come up with
neighborhoods.
the management, policy for Pease Mountain, so we really haven't looked.
Or
at
any,
that.
I just have friends that are really truly afraid of dogs.
Yeah.
So I want to take my friend for a walk to see Plouffe Lane, and we're walking along, and all of a sudden a dog comes along. It spoiled her walk for her.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that's a bigger discussion that we probably are gonna have to get more people involved, because
Right.
there are all sorts of people who wanna be able to take their dogs,
Right. And that usually is the question. Should they be on leash or should they be under command? I think those are the two ways that different towns or different areas describe it. So those are the two.
And how does ours describe it?
The ordinance is on command. Under command.
Under command, so.
So I think if the town wants to have a
works
specific
all the
policy
time.
for the town link trail right of way, that should be a policy that the select board develops. I I wouldn't see that being the responsibility of the Trails Committee.
Right, and then that goes to Pease Mountain or Plouffe Lane or, you know,
Are they part of the trail link per se? East Mountain, is that a part of, that's separate, right?
that's
Not
separate,
really, yeah.
they're separate areas, right?
We're planning
So
trails, it
there could-
says.
Right, there
Trail
could be
planning.
separate, you know, like the wildlife refuge says no dogs. There could be,
Or the beach, no doubt.
I guess the thing about the link trail is, it is, you know, an 8-foot or 20-foot easement. So again, I really feel like we have to be careful about people's personal property. And I would, like, I wouldn't know how to go back to co-housing and tell them, sorry, we can't say the dogs have to be on leashes. Like, that doesn't seem right to me.
I'm not personally saying that. I'm just,
No, I know
I'm
you're not. I'm
talking
just trying
about
to tell you
more
where
leashing.
trails is coming
More
from.
leashing than less.
yeah, because we had asked
I
them
agree with Matt.
specifically
I
for the
think we're gonna have
policy.
to come up with a
Yeah.
policy, and then within that policy, it's gonna have to state which trails,
Which sections?
which
what
sections
the-
are required to have
That would be
dogs on
great.
leashes and stuff.
That would be
I think it's gonna be a pretty, it's gonna be pretty, you know, pinpoint on the different trails.
Yeah. And then we can put the appropriate sign up, depending on what the rule is in that area.
Is this a new,
Trail ends up at the beach, which has no dogs, so if you
Right.
go to the beach, you gotta make them go away.
Right, so then what do we do, right?
There's the dog disposal area.
Veer off
You
to
can't
Thompson's.
do
We have a few miles to
Dogs
go
around
before
there,
that.
is this a subset of a current policy, or is it the new policy?
Well,
Probably clearer for me.
Yeah, the ordinance is specific to, no, I think it's townwide. I mean, the ordinance is,
On private property,
the current
has
ordinance,
to be on command.
yeah.
well, I don't think you have to have your dog on a leash on your own private property,
Or under
Right.
voice command.
or even under voice command on your own
No, I
private
think it's when you're
property.
off
Once it
property. I think
leaves
it's
your,
what-
once
yeah.
it leaves your property, then
Yeah,
the ordinance kicks in.
Got it. So any public space or on someone else's property?
Yes.
So our other question was, if we did put up the poop bags, I mean, then does that involve garbage cans, and who's gonna empty those, and like,
Right. Or will people take them with them, or,
And
They
who's
should.
gonna- Who's gonna replenish them?
Stick
Yeah.
them on file, and that answers that question.
I know, they don't,
Placed along the
I
road.
know, I don't like that at all, I know.
right?
So we have a few in town. Thompson's Point's got 2 or 3 on file, but like you say, they don't even use them. They just leave the bags on the route and then don't pick them up when they come back.
Does Thompson's Point have a place to put them in?
Well, they're seasonal. The bags are there and the post is there, but the garbage can is not there right now. But it's handled seasonally, and I don't know what part of the expenses that we
Okay.
incur at Thompson's Point. I think it works pretty well. I'd like to see everybody walks there now. I'd like to see, because now the bags are piling up next to the post, but there's no can there right now.
Why don't people take them with them? Make a sign. Please take it with you.
Right.
And where's that, gal, Abby,
Abby Folk.
yes, Abby. She does it, you know, you take in and out.
Well, on
You
a
could make
lot
a
of
sign.
trails, the idea is leave no trace.
Right,
So whatever you pack in, you pack out.
right.
Bring it in,
I
take
tell
it
them
You
that.
bring it in, you take it out, and maybe that's another thing that we could put at the beginning of the trail, you
Put
know, the
poop
trail
bags.
rules or something, you know, and,
Did you hear about New York City? They're doing like DNA testing on dog poop, so they can take it.
Just determine whose it is?
It's really true.
so will you look into some kind of
Ordinance.
an ordinance for dogs?
Is it
That
a
would be
policy
good.
or an ordinance? I'm not sure the difference in my mind.
I think it's probably gonna be a policy
Okay.
based on different.
So that would be kind of unique. Is it the link trail, or as Carrie said, is it broader than that? Or
I
is
think
it,
it's depending upon the situation. I mean, it's different trails warrant different
okay.
Yeah,
handling.
because like Plouffe Lane is town land, so the town can say, we want
Whatever.
to do this, but.
Yeah.
I was just using that as an example.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah, I think
Many
Plouffe Lane, it
trails.
does say there's rules, and I think one of them is, I think it actually says dogs on leash, or under command, I can't remember, but, yeah.
So we'll do that.
Okay.
Well, under command does nothing for me.
No. A lot of people think they have.
Or most of the dogs.
Anyway, so the next thing is we would like to set up a time this spring to take all of you on this great new trail now that it's connected. And we're just wondering what a good time would be.
So if you start, it's an hour walk, right, you start at State Park Lane, you go to the tunnel and come back, that's an hour walk,
It
right?
is, unless you put some cars at the other end.
Co-housing,
and,
right.
You know, and you walk.
Depends on how fast you want.
Cheating.
So,
Yeah, some, I guess, before the meeting,
So you want us to go to Mount Philo and walk down to the tunnel or to co-housing?
probably is easier to start at co-housing because there's parking there.
I just walked that
we could
a
start
few
with
months ago.
Ball
Wait
field
until
too.
after mud season?
Yes, I think after mud season will be good.
the walk on State Park Road from Philo is really opened everybody's eyes, because 40 mile an hour, 45 mile an hour car, there's no edge. It is really scary, especially with little kids and all that stuff.
Right,
Which is, when we get to it, I have my 2 cents
all right,
on the trail there.
right. Okay, so maybe, what, May?
Sure.
Is that after mud season,
Late May?
hopefully?
Yeah, we could do
Maybe
it
sometime,
We could do it in the
Okay.
evening, it'll be still light.
or before. Did you say before the select board meeting?
Before what?
Before a select board meeting, or?
Well, just, you normally can get folks on a Monday, so they get them an hour earlier.
Yeah.
Okay,
A little exercise. We're gonna have pizza when I get back here to keep us going for the evening.
perfect. Sounds good.
I can't bring my dog. I can leash my dog.
All right, great. So then the next thing is the State Park Road section of the Townley Trail, which is where we've been putting our focus more recently. And, you know, kind of where do we go from here? What funding sources should we pursue? What is the thought of the Select Board on that State Park Road section? I just heard you say how fast cars go there and how it is, you know, I think the farther away from the road in a sense that we can get, at least a 4-foot barrier maybe might be a better situation, but.
I mean, further away, meaning secure, not, are you talking 6 feet off-road, or are you talking I mean, my thought is, we went through this exercise with the, through the VTrans, the grant that we didn't get. It was so much money, so much oversight, and we had to contribute 20%, and then this question, can one of us be a, what was your title, project over, I mean, if you were challenging that to save $30,000, it was just such a big bureaucratic thing. I mean, we've talked, you know, I mean, can a contractor like Junior or somebody, you know, come in 6 feet off the edge of the road, and there is this big drop off. I mean, we'd have to have an engineer, so figure out what can be done there as a wetland area, but it's just a short area. It's, I don't know if
It's half mile.
it's, well, the whole thing?
Oh, just that
The
one
road is a
section.
half mile, but the area where
Yeah.
you need to, we have the big drop off, and there's, I think, a culvert under the road way down.
Right.
That's not a very, that's
No, that's.
20, 30, 40 feet, I don't know.
Right, right.
I'd love to see us do it with our resources than spending an enormous amount of money through a grant, of which we have to contribute to, and it almost seemed like a waste of money maybe. Because I heard what you know, if you look at the co-housing trail that you kind of did on limited resources, it's fine. Why can't we do the same
Right.
thing on State Park Road? It's my opinion.
My takeaway from that trail scoping study and the 3 options, it seemed like for environmental and ecological additional concerns that came up later in the discussion, that having a trail that wasn't parallel to the road was going to be more desirable for lower impact to Kimball Brook and to the trees, from the trees discussion. But I'd love to see if the Select Board, the Conservation Commission, it sounded like Amos when the Trails Committee had a joint meeting with the Conservation Commission, or maybe the Trails Committee could really pursue that third trail option that is more circuitous from State Park, but 100+ feet off of, kind of revisiting an easement agreement where it could be further away from the road, where there's a lesser grade, steeper grade down. There'd be a lot less infrastructure costs needed, a lot less disruption to the ecosystem. And it'd be a more private trail.
It went north, actually, on that side of the road, didn't it?
Well, there was one that was way north, but I think there's the opportunity with the Almond Trust, if they still own it, or if it's new owners at this point.
I think where Kimball Brook is, we're still gonna have, like, there's a house right there.
That's
I
Coo-
can't-
that is Kuchar's, that's not Almonds.
I can't imagine.
Where you go across
someone's
Kimball
gonna
Brook.
We
use these
spoke
ones.
with Kuchar, I think.
But I think that we
there's
did have a 50, is it a 50-foot?
I think 100-foot.
We have 100-foot, but he expressed a willingness to look at farther, where the Kimblebrook crossing is. Farther east, there's no easement on the Almond property, which is no longer Almond, but.
Right. But could either look at pursuing that, or seeing if they're interested in an easement. And also, picking the discussion up with Kuchar. I'm on the committee with the Wildlife Refuge Park, and Jenny Cole has done amazing work with low-impact trails through sensitive bogs and wetlands. And needing state wetland permits, I think, it seems like a viable route that the town has already kind of replicated. We could replicate it again. And it would totally alleviate the concern about having a trail right next to a road that's relatively busy and hard to mitigate that kind of that sense of having your kids on mountain bikes from State Park to Charlotte Beach and back, being unsupervised.
I guess my only concern about that property is if we were gonna get an easement, it would have been when it was just sold. So it is now.
Or 5 years ago, when Clark was doing this, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean.
If that's something the Select Board
How
wants
do
to
you know that you
look
asked him
into.
for that easement and they said no? Dean, you asked him for that easement?
I haven't talked to the current property owner. They just bought it.
It's more than just the Ullman property, though. We would have to we'd have to get to that area.
Right, which would mean going down that driveway road? River?
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure where, what specific area you're talking about as far as going.
It was pretty much on the northern edge of the plan that was parallel.
Right.
But it can, at the 100
It went right by
feet.
that woman, the Kuchar house, I think.
Oh, I think it would kind of
Or did it go?
come back to State Park Road at that point and then be a little, 50 feet to the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail entrance. Slightly taking it off of that drainage area where there's a steep incline right next to the road.
I mean, if you guys want to pursue the easements, but we're talking like a much larger project, and that was the most expensive option.
Right.
And we're talking about years of easement procurement. So I mean,
I guess one option I'm just wondering about is for Kimball Brook crossing, bring it back for that short segment to State Park Road shoulder so that, see how many people actually use it, see if it's worth going to that effort. And for the rest of the trail, do it within the existing right-of-way and then see how it's getting used. And if it is getting used, then go to that added expense. But in the meantime, have, that short segment where you have the Kimball Brook crossing without a constructed crossing, just using existing shoulder.
And there are precedents there where towns have put like the removable bullards or whatever they are along in between the road and that very short section that then could be removed for snow plowing and that kind of thing, so that it would keep the road open for Junior and for the town in the winter.
So I hear you, Matt.
Huh?
I
Just
mean,
make it a guardrail.
yeah.
Yeah,
No one's
oh, there
going
you go.
across the guardrail to the trail.
You know, we've been balancing the ideal versus the practical this whole time. And I mean, I agree with you that it would be way nicer to wander around.
Well, it wasn't nicer, it was the A&R's serious concerns in their emails about getting wetland permits right next to State Park Road. To me, that was a really red flag email. I don't know, I didn't
Right, but
hear,
if we
see
didn't
your
have
response.
to, if we didn't have to go in.
Build up
just-
all
if
of
we didn't
that
have to build up
extra
and just
riprap.
use the existing,
The existing shoulder?
the existing
Well,
shoulder,
Temporarily, see. how it goes.
temporarily.
I mean, I guess I didn't have the same response, you know, going through the engineer's conclusions that you have.
I mean, they were rather extensive. I mean, there were walks.
I mean, that's if you go down
Bridges
into
and
it.
that was very.
We're not even talking about, you know, barely going into that area. If we, you know, build out and, you know, cantilever or something like that. I didn't end up with the same impression you did.
That would be interesting, have a cantilevered little walkway where that gully is. That'd be interesting to do. That'd be kind of fun and not particularly expensive.
And a guardrail on both sides
Yeah.
or something.
It's like
Yeah.
guardrail, certainly on the roadside.
So I guess the question is, could we, is there a way to go forward to get estimates for what that kind of thing would cost if we just did a trail that, similar to the co-housing type of trail, with then looking at having something for that very short time, just close to the road, with the idea that maybe later on we could go through Kimblebrook and could, if we had the resources.
I mean, you could ask, you know, one of the town contractors to give you a judgment on that and draw it up and, you know, if it's whatever it might be, and if the board could vote on the availability of funds and go out for bids. I mean, give us the scope and maybe you can use some of the Du Bois King work that they have done to help, because one of the trails was pretty close to the road, right? Maybe look at that.
Right.
That was the one that was like 500,000, right?
Yeah, but we're not saying do that, have a
No,
contract.
I know, but
Yeah.
just saying that's how much that one
The Caltrans
cost.
spec too, which is
Right.
more than we need.
Right.
Right.
Well, there's town right-of-way on either side of that road. I mean, we should probably investigate cheating the road to the south.
Yeah.
That's an idea, too.
Junior had talked
Add
to
it,
Junior
move the
about
road a
that.
little bit to
Yeah.
the south, skinny the lanes up and put a guardrail on the north side and leave 4 or 5 feet to walk. I mean, a steel guardrail, I mean, that's,
So I'd be interested in knowing what really you have to do for permits and to look into that before I made a big
Which might be the
decision.
biggest hurdle.
Sounded like it to me in the.
You know,
I don't think you can do
Scope is
anything
set.
until you get those permits.
that's why you want to
Oh,
cheat the
and-
road.
And
Just-
then
Stay out of it.
second, after that happened and getting estimates, I would love to see an estimate on Matt's idea, because I think that would be a fabulous boardwalk through there, a raised boardwalk. And I don't know if it costs that much more. It'd be good to have an estimate of that.
I mean,
Yep.
I'm fine with looking, I mean, I think it's fine to pursue this. It's just beyond the scope of the Volunteer Trails Committee. We can't do that.
It's one, a lot more complex one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a huge project that involves getting multiple easements and raising, you know, $500,000, $600,000. Like, you know, we're gonna need, if you guys really wanna do that,
Well, the town line trail is going to require that to the Charlotte Beach, right?
It's
Few-
gonna
A few
require-
more easements and a few $100,000.
right, but
Oh,
right
yes.
now, we have a trail that ends right, like, it's a usable trail that's ending right at State Park Road. Like, I don't think it should take 10 years to do.
So we do State Park Road. My question is, when you come off of co-housing, then you gotta get on Greenbush Road, right? how long is it before you get back off trail? Or, you know, like up closer this way?
Right, well,
Is
that's,
it half a mile or quarter of a mile?
it's when you get to
The Mac
Robert
Farm.
Mack.
So you come up,
To the Mac
South
Farm.
end of the Mac Farm.
okay.
Right. But we don't have an east-west easement going into Robert Mack's, or into the Mack property.
Bush Road.
Right. We only have an easement north.
On the Burns property,
So
basically.
it's on the Burns, so you'd have to go up to the Burns property to actually
Then
go
you
from
could-
Greenbush.
okay, right, that's what I,
And that,
actually
and
I
then
was
you do,
thinking.
we do
You know,
have an
that's
easement
the,
there.
the most realistic, you do State Park Road, let's say, and then you follow it, and for several years, few years, you'd have to come all the way up to the Burns property to get onto the trail.
Right.
That
That would
brings us to the
eventually
next
come
point.
here.
Right, which definitely
And-
brings us to the next point.
So, but I mean, I'd like to see a focus, like you said, let's not wait. It's so nice right now, just do that one bit on State Park Road. If that, my 2 cents is if that could be your focus in the next several months, a year, or whatever, I think that would be and it's manageable. I'm not sure, I like what Matt said, but I don't think it's that simple either. You got an idea?
But you can have short-term and long-term too. You could say for the short term,
Yeah,
let's look at next to the road, but in the long term,
yeah.
maybe that would be a nicer, what Matt's
Yeah.
talking about. And so it doesn't mean if we do what people are talking about to get it done on State Park Road, that we couldn't, in the long term, look at other options and make changes in the trail. So,
And Dean, when you guys went on your walk in the fall, from here to beyond the Mac to co-housing
With the state?
with the state, you found a few areas that you weren't expecting to be wetlands or something like that. Is that going to change your trail thinking because of what you found last year?
I don't know.
I was on that walk.
I think the section on the west side of Route 7 was certainly more conceptual in terms of there is the co-housing trail, but there wasn't, I think as Lane said, the point from the end of the Melissa and Trevor Mack Trail to the state park is a very specific area that they, recognize there's some connectivity, people are using the trail, and to get to point A to from point A to point B is very, it's kind of a near-term thing. The other is a longer-term thing, I think it's, they want to see how it develops over the course of time. I think there wasn't as much of a, that area hasn't been used as much in terms of from the end of the co-housing trail to the village. So it was a little bit more of trying to figure out the best route.
and I think that anytime you go over water, that is something that we really need to look at. You have to get all the permits and all of that. And I think that was the only area over the what's that one, the Thorpe Brook?
That is Thorpe, yeah.
Over Thorpe Brook. But again, I think you need to
And
get
then
the
you have to
permits.
you have to put a fence along all of the trails, especially like in the Mac
The
Farm,
Mac
correct?
Farm, yes, absolutely.
And anybody else that may or may not want that.
Right. Which brings us to the
later on
final
in
question here, yeah,
Is
which
what?
is about getting easements. Because there are up to 4 properties along there between co-housing and the Mac property where we could potentially look at getting easements. And so the question is, would the town consider purchasing easements?
One of the problems, I was talking about this with someone the other day, once you set the precedent, everybody's gonna want money.
It's true.
I mean, seems to me, you work as hard as you are working and kind of get as many as you can, and if there's just one that will not come forward unless there's a payment as a last resort, you know, consider it that way. But I think once you open that door, you'll never get it closed again, in my thought. I mean, over the years, have not paid for easements, right?
Right, we have not paid
So
for
this is a
any
big, this is a big precedent-setting thing, I think, if you were to pay. Not saying we can't do it, but I certainly wouldn't want to just say from this day forward, we'll offer people money. I mean, that's,
Right.
It's a big discussion.
I know other states, this is out of our control, but other states are actually looking at some tax deductions for having easements across their place.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, it's another big,
I mean, it has
complex.
been done in Vermont, on the Mad River Path over in Waitsfield.
Pay for easement or get tax?
They have paid for easements, yes. They
It
have
ends
paid
up
for
not being
easements.
very much because you have to assess it. So you said it was ending up like
They said
$1,500 or something.
$1.27 per linear foot to $11.90 per linear foot. Now, I don't know how long ago this was.
But then eventually you gotta go all the way down to the lake buying easements
No, we
Right.
have most of them.
We have most of them,
from here to the lake.
Yeah.
pretty much.
Can't force them to accept that price, and it says price unless it's
Can't, right.
Is that a lump sum one-time purchase?
One-time lump sum, yes,
For-
to purchase
for perpetuity.
kind of the right-of-way, the legal easement across the property. Right.
How do you define the easements that are needed to finish your plan? I mean, is there a miles worth of easements or 6 properties? Or, I mean, how would you define it?
So there's the 4 spaghetti lots that are just
Between
north of
co-housing
co-housing.
and MAC property.
2 of them are very positive.
Yeah.
One of them lives out of state, and we really haven't contacted, and one of them is strongly opposed. And that's
Yeah.
it.
And that, when you get those 4, you're done?
Or-
For
For
the
the-
Burns property, I
Right.
mean, LaBeouf
Or
property.
you could go across the common land instead, and not go across those properties, and do the common land that belongs to the property owners on Stonewall Lane.
Which is Wildwood West.
Actually,
It's not actually Wildwood West, so Wildwood West doesn't actually own it. Stonewall Lane Association or something owns that piece of property,
But they're
which
part
is,
of Wildwood West.
it's different legally.
yeah, they're separately. So, and that is behind those 4 spaghetti lots.
And there's
So,
one family who's opposed.
as
And
opposed,
Even with money?
well, we haven't broached the money. We haven't broached.
so we're actually pretty close, like,
Yeah.
And how many from here to the lake we have to go?
Well, if we don't come in here, if we don't use the LaBeouf property, but end up going back out to Greenbush on the Burns property, on the north end, and then we come into town on the road, on the side of the road, and we go down Ferry Road on the side of the road, then we come to the Russell property.
well, first of all, you come to the railroad station. And we've, that, right now, because our easement goes across the railroad tracks, and you can't go across the railroad tracks with the town link trail, we've sort of made a path to the train station. But right now, you can get from the train station all the way to Lake Road.
Lake
Train
Road.
station, you mean the beach?
To Lake
But
Road.
not the
yeah.
lake, not the lake, not the beach.
Not the beach.
So then,
Right, so on Lake Road,
So you probably
you're
have,
gonna go all the,
You'd probably
on
go
road.
on road for that last
mean-
half mile or whatever
the
it
best
is.
would be to
comes
go
out by
along
Fortin?
Prindle Brook. That would
Excuse
be
me?
the
That
best.
comes out by Fortin's?
Yes,
Where the
exactly.
farm stand is?
Exactly,
Yep.
yep.
And then you ride the road all the way to the beach.
And you just have it striped on
Well,
that side
we
or
would
something.
probably do it off-road again in the right-of-way.
Oh,
But, I think if it would be really nice to go actually along Prindle Brook. So there is a better option too, but
And from Town Hall to Charlotte Beach hasn't had the scoping study where you can we can explore 3 options like this scoping study allowed.
No, because,
Well,
well, again,
we
it's on
don't
our
have-
place and we have an easement, so we've just made a path. I mean, it's already usable.
Right.
People are already using it.
That's probably
Right.
2/3 on the road and a
Oh,
third.
no, it's not on the road at all.
No,
you
from
mean
Town
from-
Hall to the beach.
So from Town Hall to the Fortin stand is mostly off-road. And then once you get to the Fortin's stand, there's nothing, we've done nothing yet.
Right.
So that would inform us how many easements we'd need to
But that's
try and
gonna, that's
procure.
gonna be in the right-of-way mostly.
Right.
Having a trail along the road would, but if there are other options that
Right.
aren't a trail on the side of a road, because
Right.
the side of the
The-
road is already
Yeah,
there.
the thing about going from town down, you can only go across the road with the railroad tracks.
Right,
That's one thing
that would
to
be one
consider.
bottleneck
So,
in the
yeah,
scoping study.
that's-
Yeah,
But when you say easements, people would ride in the front yard of a home. You'd make a trail, a path off-road in front of somebody's home. Just trying to
We're
imagine.
getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
Well, I
Yeah.
know, I just wanted to make sure that I knew what the route was actually gonna be.
It's-
Is it
it's
behind
all-
those houses, or is it along the road?
I think you'd want to talk
And
to
you're
those people and see what they wanted to do. I think that would be,
Uh-huh.
but there's also lots you can do with putting trees or shrubs or, so that,
In somebody's yard?
in the right of way.
So we
Go
answer, did we answer your 4th question?
I think.
Well, that's how you
I think
actually get
looking
planning done,
at
if you talk about it
easements
all.
for procurement and prioritizing them, and then saying, you know what, if we could buy this one easement,
Yeah,
We
the
need,
last
we
one.
need one.
do you want to
We
pursue
know
that?
who that is.
Let's look at it.
I think that's,
Okay.
A good use of,
well, that'd be the last one, you're right, the last one of
Well,
this.
we
could
still
be
got
one,
one
it could
person
be
they haven't
two,
talked to at
but
all
yeah.
because they aren't in town,
Well, yeah, we have,
besides the one that does, says no.
I did talk to that one that's out of town, but they are, and I think they still are in the process of selling their property, so I think it's hard for them to think about it while they're selling their property. So if we were to go ahead with people who are interested in having easements, is that something that we can go ahead and work with these people and work with Dean? And I know
How have you
there's,
done the others? I mean, you know more about this than we do, or I do. How have you done the other easements?
It's usually in the development.
yeah, it's been in
Process.
the development
planning
process. We've
commission
never
kind
done
of
like an individual
is
easement to
the
go and ask
steward of the
somebody.
process.
Who would be
The
this?
planning commission has been the
Oh,
steward of the
I see.
process when a subdivision or a sale is up. And
So
then
these are 3 that are,
Conservation Commission / Charlotte Land Trust, Kate Lampton has worked
Yeah.
with the Trails Committee to
Right.
kind of come up with the language.
And there's a document that the town
Legal
has and that you can use.
Trailers.
But the question is that under kind of our jurisdiction to go to these people and say, we'd like an
I mean,
easement?
if you're willing to do it, I would
I wouldn't
think.
think so. I would think that it should be some of you and some of the other boards, somebody from this board, somebody from your group,
I think someone,
Planning
having
maybe, I
someone
don't
from
know.
Conservation could be really valuable.
conservation could be very valuable.
From what I heard in that meeting, that commission, you probably know this as well, Fritz, has a lot of experience in
Which commission?
the Conservation Commission. Their ability to talk with a landowner about the benefits of a specific route, I think that is a desirable route.
So maybe somebody
Could
like
be
Kate, you're
convincing.
talking about somebody like Kate?
Kate, Amos, there's a young guy on the commission.
Because
I
Kate's
can't
on-
remember
Kate's
his
on
name.
the Charlotte Land Trust.
Do you know who that is?
Not sure whether it's Dirk or.
Dirk?
Okay.
Okay.
And if it was meeting with landowners, I'd be happy to sit in on those meetings.
Okay.
So we're really excited about it, and we wish you guys were too.
Erica,
It's a really big project. It's like, this is gonna take a decade at least. And it's helpful to have the select board's support as we're like trying to get this done. It really is.
That's where I get back to the single focus.
Right.
Because you're right, I mean, it's an endless task.
Right.
If you could make the headway on this, you're very, you're the number
Yeah.
3.
And we don't want people walking it, really.
Right. And, we go back to our goals
Right now.
that we were given when, for the Trails Committee. And really it is to provide linkages to important public areas and, publicly owned properties in town. And that's kind of what we keep going back to, so.
I had somebody tell me today that we need to have a PDF map on our website. It is too difficult to look and find our trails on whatever you have it on.
We are working on
And they
that.
said that could be done
Yep.
fairly easy, so.
This, I think we have funding in our next year's budget for that, right? I think we put it in.
Yep.
And we are working on a nice map that would have not only the Town Link Trail, but Keys Mountain, Plouffe Lane, all of them. And this could also be a PDF on our website. So, but it's in the initial stages, so.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a PDF of not only what exists, but kind of what you're looking at for the future.
The projected,
Yeah.
kind of projected area.
Which I
as
think
well.
is a map I saw in the town plan. So it might be a map you can
Is
just,
that one of the town plan maps?
there was a
Yeah.
town
Yeah.
plan map of the
Yeah,
trails.
the trails
Yeah.
and future and their points that they wanted to get to.
Good
in-
idea.
In town. It's already, like Matt said, it's already in our town plan map.
So we should show up at least twice a year and just,
Yes.
They're
bring you guys up to
But we'll see
date.
you in May anyway for a while.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Keep up the energy.
All right, thanks.
try.
Okay, thank you. That was good. Short Park Wildlife Refuge guided tours.
I know we got the application from Duncan about the Nature Connection Guide, and he's here to talk about what he does, and he's been to the Park Oversight Committee meeting to talk about his plan, and the committee supports what he's doing. It's consistent with what's happening in the park, and so anyway, we did want him to go through the town, I'm sorry. We did think you should go through the town application process, and I'm sure you have a copy of the application and the email from the Vermont Land Trust.
So you're Duncan.
Yeah. So, I'm Duncan Murat. Thank you for the introduction, and it's really a pleasure to be here. I'm from Shelburne. I grew up in Shelburne, and I've recently moved back in the past couple of years. I live in South Burlington now. My family lives in Charlotte, and my brother teaches at UVM. And I'm saying that just to let you know that I have a really intimate attachment to this land. And so what I am is a certified nature and forest therapy guide. And I lead through my outfit Nature Connection Guide, nature mindfulness walks, which are based on Shinrin-yoku, which is a Japanese practice called forest bathing. That's the direct translation. Shinrin-yoku is just taking in the forest or the nature atmosphere, and that's the direct translation, forest bathing. So I lead people on about 2 to 3 hour walks, groups of about 15, on these walks, which are leisurely, and the aim is to bring people to a deeper connection to nature through the senses. So this is different from what you may think of as a nature walk, where it's a naturalist survey. You're identifying species, you're you're using a certain part of your intellect. This is more of a like a sensory experience. So I guide people through, it's like meditative experiences through sound, through touch, taste. And so I am familiar with a wildlife refuge. I think it's a beautiful area. And I really am impressed by just the town of Charlotte in general, the initiatives that you've taken and your efforts to conserve nature, and that means a lot to me. So, so my aim is to get people to gather together in groups and share their experience, which is most oftentimes a personal and individual experience and connection to nature, but it's an opportunity for people community to come together and to share that, with each other. So, is that clear? Is there? I have a website, Nature Connection Guide. You can queue up. There's a lot of other information around the research that's gone behind forest bathing and the benefits, psychological, physiological, and physical benefits you get from spending time in nature. So, yeah.
Where else have you led these walks in the area?
So All Souls in Shelburne.
Yep.
And Oak Ridge Park, and also Rock Point in Burlington. Yeah, and also I did a unofficial walk with a few of my friends in the Charlotte Wildlife Refuge. Yeah.
So you're looking at a walk, how many walks, a dozen walks in a year kind of thing?
That I'm thinking a maximum that. Yeah.
So how do you advertise? Is that using town advertisement, or how are you thinking of getting this group of 12 to 15 on a?
Mm-hmm. So my ways of advertising have been through Front Porch Forum to put it on the calendar there, and also through social media and flyers around town.
Are you looking for more connection with the town's infrastructure? Because we also have a recreation department that, I don't know if you've spoken with Nicole Conley. Sometimes there are people who lead first aid classes, wilderness survival, classes that are their own instructors in their own right, but then through the rec department have offerings for the town, and that goes on the rec schedule as well.
Okay.
It might be, and Nicole's office is here. That might be another avenue to kind of leverage the town's resources for this activity.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
15 participants, they could all drive over and meet at the park. And we would have 16 cars to park. Would that fit?
I think it would fit, yeah. There's, yeah.
I would think it would work, and it could be.
So, you support this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not going to be really any, it's not going to be any real kind of impact, and it shouldn't, I think when talking with the land trust, I think the way they put it was wasn't going to interfere with, as long as it didn't interfere with the enjoyment of the park by others, which it wouldn't. I think it would be more of an opportunity to be outside and learn more about nature and maybe bring more people in. It seems like it's pretty compatible with what's going on there, and Duncan has also said he'd communicate with us, let us know what his schedule is so that we're not planning something the same day, or might be some reason we would be in conflict with what he's doing, but.
What is the cost?
The cost is 25 per participant, but I would like to do for town residents like 20.
And this doesn't interfere with the land trust's idea that there shouldn't be any commercial use of the property?
No. Did you receive the email from them? We did get, we spoke with them in the fall, I did, and they didn't feel that it wasn't a large enough use, and there was no real impact in the park. So they weren't really concerned about it being commercial use. There are other gatherings, like Audubon, Vermont might bring a group of people over, or UVM, or things like that, that happen in the park anyway. So they weren't, unless it was, really frequent or something.
That was from Kara Montgomery, the regional stewardship manager of the Vermont Land Trust.
Right.
So for commercial, for-profit things that are done in the town, like at the beach, there's usually a donation or something made out of the money that's collected. I mean, do you think there should be a donation that comes to your committee, or is this just getting people interested in the outdoors? And what's your thought on that part of it?
Well, I think the policy for the beaches, for a group of 15 or under, it's $1 per person.
That's a contribution, you mean?
For the beach, is that correct?
Yeah, the event fee schedule.
Right,
We came up with about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
But
should-
it almost seems like it's, since it's something just starting out and it may not be that often and the groups may be smaller, I'm not sure it's really,
It sounds to me also that Duncan was volunteering a 20% discount for town residents from $25 to $20.
Yeah.
So that's almost more than what a donation per person would be.
What does that policy say, though, about the bike tours, though? I mean, how's that work? Under 15 people, or what were you saying?
I think that's a different, when really the only for-profit group that does road races or bicycle events is racevermont.com, and they pay $1 per participant to the town, which goes into a scholarship fund for recreation. So it's $1. I think their fee is $15 for an entry fee. So like you're
And
saying.
how many people generally in that group?
It's in the range of 50, I think, yeah, he'll be coming in a month or so to present for 2018. So it's usually, I mean, I think it varies but I think for the half marathon event, it's been about 50 or so. Okay, right.
So your suggestion is to the donation through the,
Yeah, the reduction for town
Through the town.
residents seems like a donation in itself.
so you want to make a motion then to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the application for the use of town facilities for a nature connection guide as described in the application.
And, okay, you've said you've endorsed it. Anybody have any other questions?
Well, I endorse it, but I think it needs to, I think $1 per person should be charged and given back to either a recreation department or your park. It just seems other people come in the future, kind of like setting a precedent, maybe.
Well, I feel like
Other people will come and
it seems like the
Have to
town's
give them
getting a
something.
better deal. I mean, if everyone was charged $25 who used it, and a $1 donation was given, that would seem fair. But if they're gonna give a $5 discount to town residents,
still
that's quite a deal.
$20 for $1. I don't know, that's all I was saying was I think it's a great idea, and it's very good, but
Because one
I see
thing-
no real reason why $1 couldn't be, yeah.
Yeah, so you've made a
Something.
motion, it was seconded, and you didn't
Amend.
you didn't amend anything regarding
No, and we could see how it goes this year and see if there's a lot of participation, if people really like it, and revisit it for next year's application.
Okay. So people ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Duncan, you're all set.
Okay.
Thank you for coming out, and
Yeah.
I know your parents, and I've been in your house many times.
Oh, great.
Even currently, it looks
Oh, yeah?
quite nice.
Okay.
you know?
All right, thank you.
I'd also just like to add that Duncan is an incredible soccer player. We played together, Shelburne Charlotte soccer, 5th and 6th and 7th grade. Yeah, Matt Grasner, yeah. Good to see you again. Yeah, so great teammate, I remember.
Yeah, oh, great.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Okay, land maintenance brush hogging contract. So this is, you're asking us to look at the request for bids that would then go out.
Correct. And there's 3 requests for bids: the cemeteries, cemetery mowing, town land brush hogging, and town land mowing. And the cemetery commission just met and may have some comments on the request for bids for mowing cemeteries. Or not? No comments?
No, we don't, no, we're good.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a chat with Stephen Brooks the other day about the infamous swale.
It's in there.
It's in there, I know, yeah.
Yeah, it's, so that is in the brush hogging bid, request for bids. The way that's worded is, it's on page 1 in the markup that you have, I think, in your packet. Burns property on Greenbush Road, brush hog mounds for the wastewater disposal system around and between the trees planted parallel to Greenbush Road and within the swale that runs on a northwest-southeast diagonal through the parcel. All woody vegetation and cattails are to be removed from the swale. Material may be disposed in the woods on the property.
So this is in the brush hogging that you read to us?
That is.
What page?
Page 1.
Oh, right here, okay. Oh, what if it's, yeah, okay.
I think we should just name that the Stephen Brooks swale.
The Stephen Brooks swale. He's called,
saying in the brush hogging bid, after you brush hog the cattails, you gotta go back in and break them up? You have to remove all vegetation from that swale. I mean, not grass, but cattails, any woody debris, clean it out and take it into the woods.
And I can see the brush growing, but I mean, after you go down through there with the brush hog, there ain't gonna be very much.
Well, so far, only the shoulders have been brush hogged, even though the language is very similar to this for the past 3 years. So from now on, everything has to come out of the swale.
So you're brush hogging the whole ditch now.
The whole ditch.
that's the point, yes.
That's,
So is that okay with?
Yes.
Because I know me and you talked about that last year.
yeah, that's okay with the state. It's,
Okay.
it's a drainage ditch that's been there for years and years. Everything has to get removed.
So actually, the first time that you're gonna brush hog it this year, because it hasn't been done in a while, it's gonna be more,
You got a bid on it.
more money this year is what I'm saying, than it will be another year, because you're gonna spend more time there.
Yeah.
Unless you got one of those mowers on a boom like Junior uses on the ditches.
Either way, you're still gonna have to pick up the, right? Yeah.
The wood
Yeah, the wood itself. Next, yeah.
I have a question for the cemetery commission.
Sure.
So last year, it came up at a site visit, the possibility of using animals with light footprints of maintaining. I did find a local Charlotte resident who has a relatively large flock of sheep who is very interested in submitting a bid. Is that something that the town is interested in entertaining, / the cemetery commission would be interested in entertaining?
Does the shepherd maintain water and?
They would, and they would
Safety of
actually
the animals and-
remove the animals when the grass was getting too low, so as to not damage the lawn,
So there's-
and bring them back, and is within, under a 2-mile
Are those going
distance.
to be on a leash, or are they going to be voice command?
Well, I was gonna say,
Fence maintenance could be part of the bidding requirement.
So our fencing is?
Well, they would have an electric fence set up for it, with a solar battery. Cleanup might be free fertilizing. But I just wanted to know at this point if there's interest.
Extensively last year.
Yeah.
And so we had to look at getting water there.
Yep,
which
they
is
would be
Peter's
responsible
best
for
bet.
it, yeah.
The bigger issue could be, there could be damage to stones. Is it less damage than mowing? Maybe, that is hard to say. But the biggest issue by far is the fencing. It's not the electric fence they bring, it's that predators will get into the inadequate fence that we have. And that is a huge problem. So they are not protected in the cemetery,
The electric fence wouldn't protect against predators?
not against a coyote. It just right over that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could put them in contact with you. I think they don't lose their sheep with their farming methods that they have now.
Right.
And they're not that far from there. So they are familiar with the area. If there is interest, I could put you in touch with them. If there isn't, I could just
Yeah,
forget
there are
about it.
things, they need to be, there has to be a shelter, which we currently do not have. We have some nice trees, but it's not the same thing. They need a roofed structure. It can be open on the sides from what I understand, but so
Would you like their contact information?
we would definitely like the contact information.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe
but,
something to work on.
Yeah, we heard a lot of reasons not to. The old cemeteries that I could find that currently use them, there's one in Lower Manhattan that uses sheep, and he said it's really just for the, like,
Aesthetics.
yeah, it's, yeah. And there's one, I want to say, outside of Schenectady, but they don't let the sheep really close to the old stones. It's a more of a, like, kind of what our East Burying Ground looks like. It's more of a abandoned situation. But, yeah, no, I would like their contact information. If not, to just give it a try, maybe.
Sure.
So
Pass it
Matt,
on.
should we go through with the
Seems-
bid, and then we have,
Seems
may
like
have
it.
two options. Either would the person who has the sheep want to be paid?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay, so maybe, maybe that person can bid on this in the form of an alternative.
Right, I think that would probably be,
Okay,
based on the feedback from the
They're
commission.
getting free pasture.
yeah, they're getting free grass.
We're getting free fertilizer.
Okay, that's,
And an aesthetic benefit.
Okay. I did just want to point out on the mowing request for bids for town lands, Sue Smith has identified various trees that would, along the roadway and at the town beach, that need either mulching and or edging. And so those will be added.
those are where?
Those are, they're on each section. So for example, the beach, the first section on page 1, in the after spring cleanup section, identifies, the first paragraph, 15 trees to be mulched. And then in the village mowing, there's 19 trees.
So that's being added.
Correct. And some are to be both edged and mulched.
Okay.
One question for you, did Bill Fraser Harris put the fairway on the bid this year?
On the mowing bid,
Okay,
yep,
I told him to.
yes. And there was a question as far as mowing Barber Hill Trail. The Trails Committee wanted to come up on the north side, down on the south side. Is there a reason why it's been done? It seems like historically you've gone up on the south side, down
I
on the,
go up and then come back down because it brings me out to go down the Mac Trail.
by the Greenbush,
Or
yeah.
Greenbush Road Trail,
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a matter of talking with them and figuring out what they're, yeah, I'm not quite sure what they're looking for.
We usually run 2 mowers, one behind the other, so it
Yeah,
does the full width.
okay.
So you're looking for a motion to approve these 2 requests?
3, yep.
3. So you want them, some of them say March 30th, that gives you enough time? That's kind of out there, isn't it, for,
It's actually, yeah,
you
it's,
can almost take a couple of weeks off, wouldn't that?
it would be for the select board to decide the first week in April.
Not really that far away.
The end of March?
What's that? Not enough time? I mean, that's too much time, or?
No, no, I'm just saying it's not that far away, really, what you're saying.
It's in March, awarded into April.
I'm fine with that.
Usually, yeah, usually got a couple weeks there after you award it for the contractor to start.
I mean, would you rather have this in earlier, so you have time to, you need new equipment or anything, or? See, the announcement's
Not
gonna,
this year.
huh?
Not this year.
So you're okay with the 30 March? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give the contractor time. Okay?
Well, the only thing we'll have to meet with Nick to see where the new trees are down at the beach.
Somebody want to make a motion to approve these 3 requests for bids?
Want to do them all as one?
Sure.
So a motion to approve the brush hogging bid request, the mowing and maintenance of the cemeteries request, and the mowing of town land maintenance request as amended. Due March 30th.
Due March 30, bids due March 30.
Bids due March 30th.
Okay, will you second it? Any further questions, comments? Yes, Junior. Yeah, go ahead, Junior.
I was just wondering, does this include the, down at the, like by Flat Rock?
On
Down
Thompson's
there?
Point Road?
Yeah. The only reason I say that is because this past year, you've got somebody mowing the field, the town does. And then they had last year, Dan, Adam Dancher there, did around the trees. And there's a strip left between the guy doing the hay and the field. So it would be nice if they could coordinate it so somebody mows it all instead of leaving a strip. So, so brush doesn't grow up and then like around that field, I don't know, is this different than what we're talking about, that field down there?
Yeah, that's, that actually was a question. I think,
I'm just thinking that the outside of the field should be brush hogged, where they're mowing where the trees are, and then they're leaving a section which is just growing up to brush.
right. So that's not currently in there. People know where he's talking about?
Yeah.
What was that?
You know where Junior's talking about?
Flat Rock Road, off of Thompson's Point Road.
Well, it's actually on Thompson's Point Road.
Thompson's Point.
Oh, where all those trees are, I know where you
South
mean.
trees are
Yep,
where the field is, right by
yep,
the
yep,
sewer.
I do know where you mean, yes.
There's a strip that's just left, and then down on Lane's Lane as well. The field, I guess, right at the corner, right on Lane's Lane, as you turn on Lane's Lane, was not even mowed last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's not, I think we're not, well, I don't know, that's not in the brush, that hasn't been in the brush hogging.
Well, it used to get cut.
Oh, okay. Hayed,
Now-
Hayed, or,
Hayed.
okay.
but it hasn't been in the past couple of years. It's just gonna grow up to trees, and I think somebody, I don't know if it was Stanley Lane or the new guy that bought Ben, that was saying that they didn't want that growing up to trees there, so I'm just bringing it up that we were talking about. But maybe that's whoever does the field instead of.
Yeah, is it the mower's job or is it the field?
Well, it's a question of whether he wants the hay or not. I think it's, the lease for the ag lease is up to his discretion as to where he cuts.
Should that be something that would be put into the lease for,
The ag lease.
of the land for using it instead of into our mowing bid, really, in our brush hogging bid?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 5-year lease, and I think we're a couple of years into it, so we got a couple of years to go.
So can you define that? So knowing that, can you define it?
Add that to the
Yeah.
request for bids. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the north side of the road that we looked at last year? Whatever happened with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's in there basically just to do the field, just to do those areas. I think just whatever has been cut will get cut again. Is that what you're thinking?
What I was wondering, yeah. What if?
So we're gonna make that, add any other?
For the mulching around trees, scales here, we put in that, could use, wood chips instead of compost as a choice, because,
Wood chips instead of bark mulch? Or
The
wood
only
chips
thing
instead of?
about
Yeah.
using wood chips, like that guy got it a long time ago, he used wood chips around the town, and now, because they're all disintegrating, you're getting all the growth coming out of them from the chips. People always say don't use chips if you're gonna mulch,
well,
because they don't heat up enough.
VJ Comite, the arborist that consults with the tree warden, likes wood chips because, well, they can be locally sourced and
They're free.
free.
Oh, I like so.
Yeah.
I love that.
They hold the moisture well, they don't disintegrate quickly, and he likes them, so.
So what is it you want? The wood chips then?
I think if
They don't handle very easy.
they don't have, so if the landscaper would rather buy composted,
Well, they're irregular, they're not uniform.
what's that?
They're
What is it, compost or
they're
is it
irregular, they're not
bark mulch?
uniform, the wood chips are.
Compost or mulch?
Are you talking compost or bark mulch?
Bark mulch,
Right.
yeah.
So
at
it's
the
bark mulch
discretion
or
of the-
wood chips?
Of the contractor?
Yeah. They can put in their bid what they want to use.
Bark mulch is up to $50, $55 a yard?
I don't know, I get a tractor of those, so I don't know how much it is a yard.
A lot less.
We went through 180 yards last year, so.
Wow.
So are you we ought to
I
give guidance to the bidder.
think around the trees,
Yeah.
this would be nice. For the shrub beds around the,
I would say the trees, like, down at the beach or like along here, you could use that bark mulch that they shred up around, but like around the flower beds and stuff, I would just get the regular mulch.
yeah, I think the shrubs around the town hall, the flower beds, be nice to have the bark mulch. It
But
works better.
standalone trees,
But
wood
standalone
chips
trees
might be
is great.
interesting.
You just
Try
said,
that?
he just said bark mulch for both. I just wrote it down. Trees, bark mulch, shrubs, bark mulch.
No, you
I'd
meant
say
Wood
do the
chips.
wood chips
wood chips
for
for the
trees.
trees. and
Wood
then
chips, okay.
The flower beds and whatever not, regular.
Being interesting, I've certainly seen wood chips in other municipalities for trees.
Yeah, it's fine. And just to be clear for you, Dale, there'll be 19 new trees to cut around.
You're doing that, right?
No, I'm not doing it this year.
So Dean, do we need to amend that and say trees would be wood chips and shrubs would be bark mulch?
I have it in my notes. You
Okay.
can- Yeah.
Are we right with
People
everybody?
okay with that?
Everybody all right? Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine.
so it's been, motion's been made, seconded with some
Friendly amendment?
amendments. Everybody's good with that?
Fine.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay. How are we doing? Oh, the Lister certificate, no appeal or suit pending. That's pretty routine, right, Dean?
That is basically just confirming there's no suits or appeals pending.
Right here.
The listers have already signed it.
Do we
so-
all sign it then?
Yeah, you do.
Do you have a master?
I do.
Is there a motion to sign the certificate, no appeal or suit pending?
That's for 2 years, 2016 and 17.
Okay, Carrie just said
For the
yes.
grand list, right?
Grand.
Yeah.
So- And that's been seconded, so you'll pass the, oh, and any comments from anybody? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So we're gonna sign, was there 2 copies, or, oh, one's 1 year, one's the other year?
Yep.
Oh, is that right? Good. I got it. Good Lord.
Here, you want this? There you go. We just agreed to sign.
Yeah.
Okay, listers, extension of professional services, this is for Lee, right?
That's correct.
Through the month of February, zoning administrator. Anything we need to know?
Enough time?
No, but we've been extending it month at a time, so.
Hope spring eternal.
So we need a motion to approve that extension?
Motion to approve the extension of our professional planning services agreement with the CCRPC
Second?
for the month of, what is it?
February, I think, yeah.
Second.
Okay, any other comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Revised agreement with Stageworks.
So they're providing the sound at town meeting and also the informational hearing, which is Monday, March 5th at 7 o'clock, which you should be at. So they've added handheld mics for $200. So the total is, without the informational hearing, is $1,066. And then adding 3 hours for the informational hearing on Mondays is approximately $1,201. That's, it should be in that ballpark.
So the total for both is 1,201, is that
That's correct.
1201 for both? So that's what we would be voting on right now.
Is this the equipment that VCAM will be using?
No, VCAM will provide microphones for the table. And then SoundWorks provides microphones, handheld microphones for the floor, and also the sound system that VCAM will pull sound out of.
So VCAM will be coordinating with Stageworks like last year?
Yes, except Stageworks will provide the handhelds for the floor.
And Stageworks will be on site
Yes,
at town meeting?
yeah.
To fix any problems. Is there a motion to approve that?
Make a motion to approve the contract with Stageworks for town meeting day and the day before,
For a total of?
for a
1,000.
total of
$1,200.
$1,201.
Right. Is that seconded?
Just a comment, I think that the time, the labor at town meeting is not included in that, so that would be additional to have them at town meeting.
Last year, there was
Some-
some near issue,
Yeah.
technical issues
Right.
that I think
It was helpful to have them there.
It was well worth it.
helpful to have them there.
So, give a little upside, I guess it's $45 an hour for,
So add 200 to that or something like that?
So no more than 1,400?
Sure. That'd be good.
And is it possible to have Stageworks communicate with VCAM before the town meeting to coordinate this?
yeah, I've asked them to email with each other.
Okay, thanks.
So you revise the motion to 1,400, not to exceed?
Not to exceed 1,400.
Second. Anybody have any questions?
Are they on our preferred vendor list?
I'm not sure. I think so, but I'm not sure.
Can't remember, but.
I think we should even, I mean, it's kind of late, we should probably put them on for
Right.
future years. We've been using them for several years.
I know that. But tonight's the night to ask that question. I want him on the preferred, but
I can vote for it.
Is there a conflict of interest?
I don't know.
Sorry. It's that time.
Are you going to put money in your pocket for that?
It appears they are not on the preferred vendor list.
Sounds like a clerical error.
What was that?
Sounds like a clerical error.
So we could take that up shortly.
Do you want to, we have a motion on the floor, so do you want to,
I think we should approve it and then just
okay,
about it. We're
okay.
not the time to be messing around with that now. We
Right.
should think of that next time.
So, all in favor of the motion to hire Stageworks not to exceed $1,400, is that approved? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We want to make a motion about our preferred vendor list? At Stageworks?
can we do that now? Without having warned it or anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's up to us, I think.
It's just an amendment to our preferred.
All right, well, I would make a motion to put Stageworks on our preferred vendors list.
Second.
So, any comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Local vendors, we need to keep happy. Keep our tax base up.
Okay,
I like him.
Nice to let the
I'll
local.
make a motion to recess as select board and to convene as the liquor license control board.
okay.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
How do we do these, one at a time? You want to start the motions rolling? You have the documents that
Yeah.
get signed?
Where's the samples?
So just so you're clear, there's second-class liquor licenses, not also tobacco licenses for some of those.
Okay.
Is the tobacco license new?
Nope.
No, they're usually always grouped together with the liquor license. When you get a liquor license, usually it's right within it, the tobacco license.
wanna make
So you
that-
can do them separate, though.
Got it.
So you want to make that one motion, the one that's?
I'll make a motion to approve the second-class license to sell malt and vinous beverages and renewal of the tobacco license to sell tobacco for Tenney Enterprises.
Second?
Seconded. Any comments?
All of them?
Does everybody sign or one person sign?
I think there's room for everybody.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
I abstain.
You abstained? Good. Is there a motion for Point Bay Marina?
Yep.
Renew their second-class license?
Second.
Okay, that's seconded. Any comments on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Spear's Corner Store. Malt liquor and tobacco. Is that motion made?
Sure. Make a motion to request the renewal of the second-class license to sell malt and vinous beverages and to renew the tobacco license to sell tobacco for Spear's Corner Store.
Is that seconded?
I'll second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Make a motion to, well, how would you say that? To reconvene as the select board.
Is that motion seconded?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Next topic we have is town meeting presentations. So, what's the pleasure of the board? I think Matt, you brought up doing a little presentation at 9 o'clock, no one's there. It wasn't very effective. And I think you suggested when we actually get into the articles that maybe we say something. Do we want to do it from the stage? Do we want to do it as a written presentation? What do people want to do this year?
I think the actual presentation was
Okay.
great. The way you laid it out.
Okay, so we pull the screen down then and,
Did other people like that?
okay. So what are our topics? Each year we've been talking about all these donations and did somebody volunteer to kind of put something together on donations, or we let the audience pick it up if they so desire? Do we want to be silent and less asked, or do we want to say something?
Well, I think we should bring it up for discussion and say that the select board is kind of split. Some think that the town shouldn't be using tax money to support certain charities, and others think it's a good idea, and we want the opinion of the town.
So why don't we can make that a topic and ask for opinions then, I guess you're saying.
And if nobody says anything, I guess that means status quo.
Okay, so we'll add.
And would that be during the presentation or at the point in the meeting where it's all other articles? I think we'd get more participation.
Well, you've already voted on it. It's a budget article. Because it's money in the budget.
Right. Oh, right.
So you ought to, if we're going to do a little run through of the budget, it ought to be, we don't want the screen to go up and down more than one time.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
So we should do it at the start of Article 3 if we're going to do it, which would say yes. So therefore it ought to be at that time, I would think.
Is that
Sure.
good timing?
Okay, you all right with that?
Anytime. The earlier the better, the more people are there.
Yeah.
And we should have Fire and Rescue have their budget, their presentation, probably right after mine, because that's part of the budget, right? What other topics did we think about? I had a fourth, I can't remember what it was.
Is it the generator thing?
Oh, the generator. If you send me a bunch of bullets, what you want to say about the generator, I can put it in a slide, and then you can either speak to it or I can speak to it, however you want to do it.
I
And
can't imagine more than one or two to think of. Other than it's part of our emergency
Emergency plan?
preparedness thing, and,
Okay.
if you want emergency responders and stuff during an emergency, if they can't use the toilets, they're not gonna be there.
And Recreation is putting together a draft presentation. They'll be meeting on February 27th to.
I'll get with Chris Davis and we'll get you something.
Give me 2 or 3 bullets. And so when you get into the Article 5, which is to raise taxes to support the recreation, you're going to have a little pitch on that?
Yeah, they are working on a presentation, Recreation. And Nicole is gathering as many commissioners as possible to come to town meeting to present with her. And I'd certainly, I'm planning on going to their February 27th meeting where they're going to come up with a final presentation together. And we'll help out in any way that's helpful, if it's participating in the presentation or.
Okay. So we'll have 3 groups stand up. We'll have Fire and Rescue, Recreation, and I'll put a couple slides together here like we did last year. And I think last year you spoke to one of them, didn't you? Didn't you stand up?
Trails, was it?
Oh, probably Trails.
I think that was last year.
One of the topics were planning, zoning, audits, financial, facility upgrades. You didn't do it during Article 4 of proposed town budget. Land use regulations. You may have spoken Did you speak from the stage?
Maybe
I think so, in the trail.
on the trails? I have to go back to the video.
So we'll have,
I think it was because it was a separate article, so it was for the article that you spoke from the stage.
Oh, and maybe prefaced the discussion for that article.
okay, so we'll have fire and rescue, recreation, and then what I put together. Okay, I'll try to have a draft for our next meeting. Okay. Anything else about town presentations or town preparation? So we all should be there Monday night. Are we going to present or just react to the audience?
Well, so it's an informational hearing about the Australian ballot articles, and really the only Australian ballot article is the town plan.
Okay.
So, I don't know really if anyone's going to show up, but if they do, that would be the topic. I can ask Planning Commission to be there as well.
So there was an article in the Charlotte News Wednesday past. So Peter put that together. He asked me some comments and I edited and I gave him some feedback. Peter's asking that we put it, so the Charlotte News comes out one more time before town meeting. He's asking that the select board say something of support of the town plan. Is that okay if I put something together? I can either be factual or supportive. The facts are, it's due, it expires. It's a little, I put a little box that was in this time, which summarizes. They're asking for another little write-up from the select board. So should I do that? I'm willing to. I don't want to.
Yeah, I would. I mean, it's
Can I say
a little bit of
vote?
both. You need to support it because the facts are, I mean, there's a,
Can I say vote yes, or it's from the select board, so I vote yes, article, whatever it is, 8, is that okay?
well, we had one dissenting vote. Is that okay?
But that's why I'm asking. You're right, I say,
Yeah,
sign it, article.
yeah,
For you,
if you put
vote
in,
yes, article.
yeah, maybe just say it was a 4-1
Okay,
vote.
what do you think about?
Will you send it over once you figure out what you want to say?
Sure.
You'll send it to us or send it to Dean and
Sure.
he'll send it to us?
Okay, so you're saying okay for me to write something, it'll just be a couple of words maybe.
And I think, as far as my dissenting vote, it's not a dissent of the town plan. I think it'd be very wise for the town to pass the plan.
Well, why don't we be silent on that? The majority voted for the plan.
So maybe not,
If they want to ask you publicly at the meeting, then you can answer,
yeah.
because there are a lot of changes upcoming, it's a living document. I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do basically that the select board approved it to be on the ballot.
Planning things floating out there that we really want to make sure we have a town plan for.
Right.
A few.
Okay. Anything else on town meeting? Select board updates.
I have one. I wanted to see if anyone had interest or willingness to pick this up. Mainly looking at Fritz. But mostly for,
Are you going to get any money out of it?
probably not, which puts you in safe territory with conflicts. So this is an email I got from a woman that I know, lives in Montpelier, and let me just, very succinct letter to me. I'm currently part of the Urban and Community Forestry Program at the Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Rec. My largest and most exciting project right now is called Resilient Right-of-Ways, leading a rural road portion that includes assessment of rural roadside vegetation composition and health, data collection that supports outreach pieces on common ecological communities along rural roadsides, and collaboration with town road crews, the local roads program, and our teams at the Agency of Natural Resources and the Agency of Transportation to outline best management practices. This fall, she ran a pilot program with East Montpelier and the town of Calais, both those towns. She met with a project advisory committee to develop a scope of work. Then the state assesses vegetation every quarter mile along pre-selected back roads that are identified to have concerns about roadside vegetation, too much, too little, too dangerous, abundant mud problems, river road conflicts. Both towns are receiving the results of their assessments now. At the conclusion of my work, these case study towns, the project advisory committees will receive an action plan that prioritizes vegetation management along their rural roads and guidance on key issues such as invasive species management and tree care. Now looking for 4 more towns as the next step of a pilot program. I know that Charlotte has worked with the urban and community forestry program before to complete an urban tree inventory, and Charlotte has been highly recommended as a proactive community. Is this something the Select Board might wish to consider? So one, I thought because of roads, there's a natural synchronicity there, but my other thought was maybe the tree wardens would want to.
We've done so much with the
this.
trees.
There's the emerald ash issue that I think,
I think the tree warden and junior, because any results of an action plan is going to fall in his lap as
Right.
maintaining the right of way.
and it's advisory only, but I think also as far as the Better Back Roads program, I think in the future, if we're looking for grant money, having more involvement with state agencies is going to be more beneficial to getting grants if they're needed than passing up an opportunity like this. So that's where I kind of perked my interest was, they're reaching out, the department's reaching out to see if we want to help with a pilot
So
program.
it seems to me Mark, maybe,
Mark and Junior.
yeah, probably Mark would be the lead, and then Senator Junior would be supportive.
Okay. And people are okay with me pushing that
Yeah,
one?
can you send that email to me, because I might have, I'm always skeptical of the hidden things and
If there's,
hid better back roads. And one of their rules says, that, well, whenever you grade a road, you're gonna follow it with a compactor and a water truck. And I look at our road build. If you're prudent, you can time it when it's damp after it rains and don't need either of those. But
yeah.
follow the rules,
Well, Bill Bly,
we're tripling our maintenance costs, so.
yeah, Bill Bly used to live across from you, and he would do that for Guinea Road for free, but just because he didn't want all the dust on his property. Okay, yeah, I'll forward that to you.
I have a couple other issues. I just want to say that on the Lanes Lane, you all know the force main has been put in the last month or so. We had an ordinance update for how we wanted to handle the requirements of people hooking up. I think Matt was a part of that 2 or 3 months ago. We have different agreements that expire. We came up with a recommendation of how to handle that, which we all agreed to. And then just the last few days, I think Dean got a report from the wastewater committee of Thompson's Point with some updated changes of our wastewater ordinance of Thompson's Point, which would include both the Lanes Lane and these other changes. So I just want to say that we're going to put that in the agenda, March, what did you tell me, 14th or something?
At one of the meetings in March.
Well, one of the meetings, Mary brought this up, and I met with her today for a bit. We've really been busy with the town plan, the zoning administrator, the budget, and we did work on it. We haven't been active on it in the last 2 or 3 months. But I just wanted to say, we have something that could be reviewed. You're going to review all those changes with Mary, then we agreed it goes to the attorney for their review, and then we can look at the updated ordinance in March.
And the wastewater committee.
And review with the wastewater committee. The other thing I want to say, I thought we reviewed this, but it was in Mary's email. So the MOU, which is a legal document between the Select Board and Fire and Rescue, in November, Mary came up with about 6 or 8 things that she questioned, which are good. So we had a meeting in November. I met with Tom, President of Fire and Rescue. You were there. I think we opened it up. Anybody wanted to come, could come. So we met with them, and we went through the MOU line by lines, some suggested changes. Tom has a couple things they have to look at. We have how we handle surpluses. We met with our CPA a year ago, and Mary wrote this down. I've got that. And then we have a couple changes to the select board. So in March, we'll come forward and propose to the full select board with fire and rescue. These are the updates to make the MOU current. It's supposed to be reviewed annually, and I don't think we did it last year. So we're on a path to update it. So I'm just passing that on to
How come
everybody.
it wasn't for all of us to look at it?
It was open. Oh, we didn't have a,
The meeting.
How
Well,
come?
we just,
was a,
we're gonna, some of them are information to come up with. One, Tom, I mean, there's a couple things that Tom's looking for, and when we get all this paperwork, then we can all
right, we're
look
not,
at it.
it's just trying to get our heads together on what needs to be done. So nothing's being
'Cause
approved.
I remember when it was first put out to the voters when it was first presented, there was a lot of gray areas then.
In the MOU. Okay. So we're going to take all the recommendations from what we had, what Mary had, and what the Fire and Rescue had, and we'll bring them forth here with hopefully a recommendation.
And I think that probably March, but the board's gotten real busy over there lately with a couple other issues, so.
Okay.
Okay, as long as you can get a copy of what it is and what the changes are.
Have,
So I have time to look at them.
the Dropbox thing should have happened, though. Did it? I mean, are you all?
I think they are.
The answer is yes.
The select board and Mary have been given permission to be on the Dropbox. I don't know that there's a lot of new content on there. Mary asked whether recent minutes have been put on, and maybe they haven't because they haven't been approved. I don't know.
Yeah, and one person that was the new secretary just quit, and trying to find somebody over there that wants to take minutes is not an easy task.
Now you,
But they're there, but I don't know where they're.
so the minutes are coming to us through Dropbox.
Yeah, only after they've been approved.
After they've been approved, which then becomes the month after the meeting actually took place.
Yeah.
And then you're taking those. and
I'm
putting
not
them
doing
on-
anything with them.
Huh?
They put them on Dropbox over
They
there.
put them on a
But
Dropbox, and you all have permission to look at them
Okay,
through Dropbox. So anytime you want, you can go back and look
okay.
at any month, any time.
They put it back a couple of years, I think.
I think.
Now, are their meetings open? They're supposed to have their minutes posted after so long? Is that?
No, it's
that
it's
happen?
it's not the same public meeting law. It's a 501,
Okay,
so it doesn't require the Vermont public meeting laws.
okay.
My last question is, how do we want to handle this conflict of interest? Because we reviewed it so many times, and Peter isn't happy with it. But we've been to VLCT, we've been to the statutes. What more can we do? I've emailed them,
We could ask
Yeah, I mean,
to weigh in.
I mean, how do you want to handle that?
send him the bill. I
And
mean,
nobody here is objecting, so if there's an objection here, then you vote on it, but
The part that's really clear to me here is, no town officer appointee or employee shall benefit directly or indirectly in any manner requiring the discharge of his or her public office, nor shall any town officer, appointee, or employee take any part in any decision concerning the business of the town in which he or she has a direct or indirect financial interest greater than any other citizen or taxpayer. That's the key of the conflict, is whether it's financial or personal, it has to be at an amount greater than any other citizen or taxpayer. And in the specific,
we're all benefiting from, let's say, fire and rescue.
not only are we all benefiting, but anyone can be a volunteer of that organization in town.
Right.
So everyone has the same interest to benefit from the passage of that budget. I clearly don't see any conflict in that specific.
It breaks down, trying to present all this stuff. Years ago, they fed me all this crap that supposedly was dishonest and happening. And when I volunteered and found out that none of that actually happened, they're pissed off because I changed sides or I drank the Kool-Aid or whatever they want to call it, that I don't agree with them now, that that's not an organization full of crooks that are taking money. So that's what it is. I changed my shirt, I changed my colors. I prefer to
did your
say I got
research.
educated by showing up and doing something, but that's not the way. There's a few people that look at that, and I don't think it's ever going to get changed. So we're looking at ways to poke that tiger. That's all.
So, do we really want to spend $250 an hour for a lawyer to write up a letter saying there's no conflict of interest? I mean, how do you want to, I don't want to go to Secretary of State. I'm comfortable with what you've read and what we've studied. I don't particularly want to go to an attorney, huh?
Comfortable with it.
Everybody's comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to live up to the commitment we made tonight, we could have a 5-minute agenda item for conflict of interest policy and bring it up and say,
We already said we were going to do that.
Right.
Okay,
We're
so that's what
comfortable
we'll do.
with
We're
it.
not going to spend any money.
I don't
We'll
see
just
why we
collect
should
the
spend
data. I've
money
had
on
it all on emails to Peter. He just doesn't accept. He said the MOU is something rigged. It wasn't rigged. It was well thought out over a couple of years period. I mean, can we make changes? Of course we can.
annually, yeah.
And it wasn't just created by the board across the street, it was created with the select board
Attorneys on
before
both
I was
sides.
here, but yeah.
Okay, so we'll schedule 5 or 10 minutes and summarize what we've said and have the policy and the statute. Okay. Anybody have any other updates? We have 2 sets of minutes.
I had 2 quick items. One is I received two requests from the Cemetery Commission and the Conservation Commission that they want to have emails set up as like cemeteries@townofcharlotte.com and conservation@townofcharlotte.com, so they can put them on Facebook and they all go out to their members. I asked SimQuest if that could be set up. They said it can. It would be totally separate from our town computer, so that they wouldn't, there'd be no chance of somehow going through the email if if there was some kind of virus or whatever that got into their email, that it wouldn't come into our computers. So I just wanted to, ask if that's okay, if there's emails that say cemeteries or conservation@townofcharlotte.com.
No, that's going to be on a separate thing.
Yeah,
so-
here's the description. It's a little bit more than I can understand, but that describes how it's set
So
up.
they have their own account.
Right.
Doesn't cost us any money.
Right.
We
And they
have enough permissions to do this.
What's that?
We have enough permissions in our
Yeah, it's
contract.
actually not on our computer, it sounds like. It's a totally separate computer. I think, is how I read that.
So this says they already set them up.
Well, he set up like a dummy, sort of, but I think that's how he would do it. There's a couple of spelling and syntax errors, but other than that, it's...
Okay.
But it would still be on this server?
I got the sense it's not on the server, so I can, if you want to come in and we can talk, we can give him a call and we can verify that.
I'm just wondering if these, I'm assuming since these are, are these going to be public, since they're supposed to be Town of Charlotte email addresses, are they going to be public email addresses? And it should be something that should be controlled by the town to know what's in them, and just.
Right.
Like everybody else
Right,
has
so
said,
public records.
that's got a Town of Charlotte
Right.
email address.
They're considered public records, true, yep.
So does that meaning they're public then, or?
Well,
Well, our Town of Charlotte
Our
email
public
addresses are public record, and the Trails Committee or the Cemetery Committee and the Conservation Commission are going to be, they're town committees that want to that are gonna have a town of Shalott email address, basically.
But they're,
Really, all emails, even if it's not town of Charlotte, but if it's a public official, they're still public.
right, that's what I was gonna say.
Well,
If it's
I-
asked for them,
Yahoo or AOL, still
Right, but,
Subject
right, but
to
they
it.
don't have to ask for them if they're
On our server.
on our server,
right, you just grab them.
because we have access to all the emails on the server.
so if somebody wanted to see all the cemetery emails, town or Charlotte, they'll have that's a public document, they have a right to see that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Well, it'd be, you'd have to request it,
Right.
instead of having it on our server where we can access it anyways.
Right, it's freedom of information, and then the chairman of that committee would have to make them available.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. So what's the deal here? You're gonna, everybody's good with this, or?
Does Trails have this?
No. The only other thing is I'm going to be out of my office on Monday, the 26th, and Tuesday, the 27th.
When, do we have a meeting when?
On the 26th, so I won't be here for that.
You will not be here for that?
Right.
Okay.
Bless
But we'll meet a couple hours ahead of the March, what's the special meeting? I'm getting confused. When's the town meeting?
Town meeting is on the 6th.
So what about that Monday night? That's-
Monday is the 5th.
Fifth, that's the pre,
Informational hearing.
But that's a warned meeting, right? You don't have,
That is.
in that
yeah.
little summary here, you don't have that. So March 5th, so I'd want to meet with you a couple hours during the day, make sure everything's set up for
Right.
the computer and stuff. So that's a public meeting
and that's at the school.
at the school,
At what time?
7
7.
o'clock. That's March 5th, Monday. Then we have town meeting. And March 8th is our, you called it a special meeting, but it's a select board meeting
Right.
for purposes of organization.
Right, and approve the warning for the budget and budget-related articles.
So those are important meetings for everybody, those. Good. Okay,
Busy week.
busy week.
So I was going to ask about that PayPal snafu with the trails last week when we found out that there was the PayPal account set up. So we kind of can see in minutes how that happened, but how are we going to make sure that doesn't happen again with other committees or other people?
I don't know if any organization's dumb enough to set up a account in somebody's name.
It's not
that-
allowed.
That person isn't.
But they
there.
did. You know, that person did
Well, that's a,
by
I don't know
using
why PayPal did that.
Jordan Mead or something like that. But how is that not going to happen again?
It can always happen. Fraud happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, fraud happens all the time. I mean, it was wrong. It was an anomaly.
Now,
As-
now they had a website or webpage.
A donation to, was it Trails? Who was it for? Oh, right.
Trails.
Trails?
And what I didn't understand is no one knew about that money, Dean? No one knew about that extra $1,800 until Mary got that
What did she get?
1099?
I didn't hear. what
1099
She got 1099?
or 800, yeah,
Yeah.
from PayPal.
I don't, not that I'm aware of. I think, for a while, a few years, they were PayPal was sending that to us to put in the town.
$498.
Sorry?
$498.50 at a time was given in checks. At that point, you don't have to, doesn't trigger a 1099.
Okay.
$499 does. But there was two for $498.50, so Mary wouldn't have gotten a 1099.
Is it
And
600?
the reason why they did, no,
Oh.
the reason why she did this year is because nobody took care of that account, the PayPal account, to split the money in half, and it came as a whole as as $850.
So it triggered.
So it triggered the 1099 and Mary investigating the rest. So, no, nothing, I don't believe any kind of, movement of money or anything wrong at all. But it could have happened. Somebody was not overseeing that properly. I mean, they once were told, no, you cannot have a PayPal, and then it somehow got set up fraudulently, and it's gone on for a few years, and nobody knew about that $1,800. How are we gonna know another time?
Well, I don't think we can.
No,
If someone's collecting money on behalf of the town.
Of
I mean,
the
that's-
town.
That's
Keeping
not
it-
the first time it's happened. I
They're
mean,
keeping it under the limit for reporting W-9, that
the
could
Vermont,
happen.
the Shaw Trails VT.org.
You can't get to it now, she got that,
No, it's still, yeah, the donation
Check the
button's not there, but
donation.
but the webpage is still there.
yes, that's
And,
fine.
and is that something that was authorized by the town for this committee to put up
Website?
a website?
I think it was, actually.
It
Probably.
it was before me, so I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
is there a link from the town website to this website?
Not that I saw.
Not sure.
My phone,
Someone's phone.
mine. Must have a text or something.
Doesn't look like it.
Should we take that down? Can we do that?
Well, there's nothing on it now. I mean, there's no
Well, I'm just saying,
donate.
because it says VermontTrails.org, so, I mean,
What-
what are they, I mean, I'm assuming .org means that they're nonprofit. And so I'm trying to figure out, did they
What's on the,
organize their own nonprofit, or?
what's
I
the?
think anyone can
Yeah.
purchase any domain name ending, but typically it's self-organizing, so nonprofits and municipalities do .orgs, but a for-profit could set up a .org if they wanted to pay for it. What's the webpage?
What's the
It's
address?
ShalotTrailsVT.org.
Okay.
I'm just not really sure how
I mean, they do have.
somebody didn't know where $1,800 was, and that nobody in the committee knew
Well, it
that they
was
had that money?
where it was raised. I mean, I don't know if someone received a statement, but it was, I mean, I really don't know anything more about it than you do. I'm just
Okay.
trying to put it together, but it seemed like the person who was sort of looking out for it left the committee. What was going into the PayPal were donations electronically, so I don't know.
When that person, what I was just trying to figure out is when that person left, did they say, oh, you got $1,800 left in your account? Would they say that to, or, just,
Right.
there was not good oversight on some money there
Yeah.
over the last few years.
So this is what's on that site right now. Nothing really interactive. I mean, it's view the. Let's see.
To make a donation, mail a check made out for the Charlotte Trails Fund to Trails Committee, P.O. Box 119, Charlotte, Vermont.
That's our address here, right?
Yep.
Yes.
425-3533 is the phone number?
That's a
One of
normal
the phone
town
numbers here.
number.
Yeah.
That's one of,
That's one of our normal town numbers.
I don't see it leading people anywhere other than the town.
No, it doesn't now.
No, not now. They took off, there used to be a donation button that they would push, and then they would be able to donate to that. I mean, I guess it would lead them to.
Looks like we had a lot of years to
do a
work with the
PayPal
Trails
thing.
Committee and needs to make sure that we're understanding it all. And so then I have another subject that we're all not gonna like, but, or some of you, Thompson's Point and the leases. So up until you became town administrator, Dean, Mary did all the work, all of it. And now it seems to be like gradually moving away from that. I've tried to figure out who's responsible for what over the last few years, but still can't figure it out. The email that we got at 4 o'clock was all fast. You know, you didn't just do it a couple days ago. And had you talked to Mary about it over the last, like, since that last meeting? About anything, you're not working together on it?
I think you're talking about wastewater, is that correct?
And, yep, and leases.
Yeah, so Tom Mansfield was, I think, appointed by the Select Board to be on the Thompson's Point Wastewater Advisory Committee. And when he left, Janine was on it. And Janine's workload came to the point, and maybe it was aside from workload, we were both on it for a little while. She asked me to step in partly because of workload primarily. And then after a while, she said she felt like she couldn't be on it, and it seemed like it was more administrative things that fell under my usual framework. So I started being more regularly on the Thompson's Point Wastewater Advisory Committee, which is basically my role has been to coordinate the meetings, coordinate the budget. Mary is also involved in the committee. She provides some of the financial information, but there's things that the committee does that's, you know, it is not just financial in terms of they have sent out over the past few years notices to leaseholders in the wastewater bills or in, I guess primarily the wastewater bills. So in terms of whether she's, yeah, I guess, so that going forward to, I think it was the ordinance, which was triggered by the Lanes Lane extension. I think both independently, we looked at the ordinance and said, it's out of date, it needs to be updated. And I think the select board discussed that at some point. And I think I was directed to talk with Mary about it. In the meantime, we had the budget, the town plan, town report, zoning administrator, issues that I haven't been able to look at that issue since the last select board meeting. But in the meantime, members of the Thompson's Point Wastewater Advisory Committee asked to have the ordinance sent to them. So I sent that to Miles Waite and maybe Tom Maffett as well. I had done up a sheet with a page and a half of items that I could see needed to be edited in the ordinance, in addition to the Lanes Lane provision. So Miles responded to that on last Wednesday, and that's where things are at as far as I knew. There wasn't any additional work that I was doing on it. I was waiting for my plate to clear in order to get back to it.
There needs to be some sort of clarification that who's doing what, because Mary really should be 100% invested in doing that or part of it. Thompson's Point, she always has been.
If
She can't do the ordinances, that's a select board issue.
Well, I get that, but
She goes to
she's,
meetings.
Well, this is what the
needs
topic
to be.
is.
I do, because I list 11.
I don't know, I just feel like there's still not a clear line between the two of you.
Yeah, I mean, if she wants to do the wastewater committee, I'm fine.
I don't know what it is, but I
Okay.
know that there's something that it's not clear. And going forward, something's
Well, maybe
changed
she can
over the
clarify
last
that
few.
if she has a concern.
Yep, okay, I'll ask her to do that.
So we have a plan
Because-
forward to process the ordinance change. So I just said a few minutes ago before you brought it up, March 14th, it will be on the
No, I
agenda.
know, but it's beyond that. There needs to be a little more clarification about who's really like, works on what with Thompson's Point. You can't, maybe you both do it, but I want to know who does what. Just so it's clear for,
I'm totally fine if she wants to take it over. I mean, I don't have a problem with
yeah,
that.
I don't know how to, I don't care how it is per se, other than the fact that it needs to be clear for both her.
I read that
myself
she
and-
felt that we hadn't taken prompt action,
The changes.
and the reasons are, the town plan, zoning administrator, and it's back on the agenda again. And we have a document with all the changes, which will be reviewed with Mary. So her frustration was that one and the MOU of fire and rescue, that people hadn't picked up from her emails. In fact, we have.
I just have heard about Thompson's Point before this. I've talked about it before, that there seems to me that there's just a need for some clarification of job description or
Is
procedure.
may
whatever the word
need
is.
some attention is if she sends out an email and expects a response. I mean, I'm aware that you really shouldn't be responding because of the open meeting law. So I don't know if she's expecting a response and that's not happening or what. Maybe there's another way to include her in a meeting process without going through emails.
Yeah, and I think the only way to not run afoul of open meeting law is to have the select board carbon copied on email discussions between Mary and Dean. If we don't weigh in on a discussion, we are listening. And Dean can discuss any town matter without being subject to open meeting law requirements. So, but that's why, when it was brought up why there was silence through that mode of communication, that's why I haven't communicated when Mary brings things up, because we can't have discussions on email.
This is the select board member on email. I'm supposed to do it at the table in front of everybody.
Right.
Well, what about meetings that are done, like with MOAs or couple, 2, 3 people? And how about that? That's not being
That's
discussed
information
at the
that's
whole
brought to the
table.
Before there's any action. I mean, the whole
I don't know.
Thompson's Point thing is, Mary sits in the wastewater meetings. She's usually here.
But I'm telling you, there's something awry that needs to be clarified. I've heard it, don't know what it is, but there should be,
Let's identify it.
identify it. Thank you, yes. Just,
I hate emails. I said I hate emails.
We did we're good?
yep, thank you.
Minutes. Motion to approve the minutes, January 22nd? Or 16th first. Motion to approve the minutes of January 16th? Seconded. Oh, this is when we did the computer services. Budget, town plan. Any comments? Motion was made and seconded. All in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes of 22nd? There a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is that seconded?
Second?
Or second public hearing? I listened to the VCAM tape, that was interesting. A lot of people don't want to move forward.
And what?
Well, I think we need to be moving forward. It was just a lot of reasons not to proceed with the town plan.
There's some
It's a living document.
general traction. You'll have that with overarching documents.
Sometimes you have to keep pushing hard.
The more pages, the more controversial.
Anybody have any comments on this?
No.
Great minutes.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there any more business to be brought before the board? Oh, warrants. Make sure you sign the warrants before you
I only
leave.
saw one liquor license thing. Is there another one floating around?
You know, I haven't seen that many either.
They
Yeah.
piled up.
They were
Okay,
heading in your direction.
okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Is that seconded?
Second.
Okay.
Third.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.